because this was not supposed to be the all-in season. It is the all-in year for Missouri, and that's what makes this feel different, Alex. As I was watching that game on Saturday, there was just a sense of finality to it. I was listening to Gabe DeArmond, PowerMizzou.com, on with the morning show today, and he was talking about how, you know, after the Texas A&M game, there was real anger from Mizzou fans. There were people that were, like, furious about how this could possibly happen to Mizzou. How did they look this unprepared? How did they get blown out like that in this kind of an all-in season? This game was different. As you watched that game, and especially after Brady Cook left with that hand injury, God, a high ankle sprain, and you leave with a hand injury. Unbelievable. There was just this sense of acceptance for me watching the game of, oh, yeah, they've got no chance. They can't score. So how could they possibly win this game? And then Drew Pine throws the interception, which leads to the score before the half. And at that point, you knew Missouri ain't scoring 14 points. They had no chance. Defense did everything it possibly could in the first half to keep them alive. And ultimately, they didn't have what it took. So I left that game sad because this is it. That was it. Everything that you could have possibly hoped for this season is now over. But also accepting that this is our fate. And when Brady Cook went down to injury, I knew what was coming.
Yeah. I think this season has played itself out to the point where that game against Alabama was just clarifying what Mizzou fans, I think, already knew. You go back to the Vanderbilt game, it's a win, but Vanderbilt was close, and you're like, oh, wait, is this team not as good as we thought they were? But you were thinking, hey, they grinded out the victory. Then the Texas A&M game happened, and it's like, okay, this team might not be the same playoff contender that we thought they were going to be after Buffalo and Murray State, where everybody was super high about those games. It felt like that Alabama game was just the end. It was the fat lady singing for Mizzou, and not so much of just the team, because I did think at least they were going to make it competitive. But you're right. When Brady Cook left, you thought this one's over, because when your backup quarterback comes in, I don't care if Drew Pines didn't look prepared, whatever you want to call it. Your backup quarterback steps in, unless you're Texas, your season's over, because you don't prepare to play with your backup quarterback. So the moment that Brady Cook went off, and even coming into that game, you knew Brady Cook was going to be at 50% because of his high ankle sprain. It just felt like the bow at the end of the season for Mizzou, to where it was like, yeah, you know what? This season was not what we expected it to be in terms of this miraculous playoff team. The first year that the playoffs expand, Mizzou gets in and then does the unthinkable. I felt like that Vanderbilt game was the one where you started to open your eyes and say, maybe this team's not as good.
And now you look back on it, that Vandy game might have been the best one they've played this year.
Totally.
Because Vandy's good.
Vandy and Boston College.
Not Vandy is good for Vandy's typical standard.
Like
the Vandy's just good. They're a top 25 team. They're not ranked as such, but they should be. They're a legit top 25 team in the country right now. That might have been the high watermark for how we feel about this Missouri team looking back on it now, knowing what we do. You mentioned the backup quarterback thing, Alex, and I think this is a really important part of it. I was rage tweeting over the weekend during the game.
Not healthy.
During the game, I was like, how can they possibly keep putting this guy out there? Man, they didn't have another option. They didn't. And the truth is, nobody does. Texas does because they've got Arch Manning. Texas A&M does because they've got Marcel Reese. Show me another team nationally that has a really good backup quarterback that you're thinking to yourself, man, if they put that guy in, not only would they stay afloat, but they might even be a little better than they are with their starting quarterback. There's probably not, there might be fewer than 5 that you could list on that list. And the reason why is because the game has changed. There was a point in time when Missouri could recruit their next starter, play them in 4 games, and redshirt them, and then the following season, they take over. Missouri did this. They did it with Chase Daniel. They did it with Blaine Gabbert. They did it with Matty Mock. They did it with Drew Lock. They did it with all of the James Franklin. All of those guys, it was always like, it was the Pinkel model. You would have a guy that was starting junior season, senior season, and then you'd go off to the NFL, and in this final year, you'd get a few starts for the backup, and that guy takes over the next season. That's no longer how it works. Now, if you don't become a starter by your sophomore year, sometimes by your freshman year, you transfer. Because you've got free unlimited transfers. You can go get an NIL package somewhere else. Hell, Quinn Ewers did this. Went to Ohio State his freshman year and then left for Texas. Like, these quarterbacks just don't stay any longer. And Missouri had one they thought might be able to do that, and he blew out his elbow by playing baseball because he's a better baseball prospect than he is a football prospect.
Dang it, Sam.
I would love to get on here and just be furious about Eli Drinkwitz and how much he screwed all of this up because he didn't have a backup plan at the quarterback position. I can't do that. I can't do that today. There's a lot of things I can be mad about with Eli Drinkwitz, including some of the game plan on Saturday, which I didn't think was particularly good, and they never adjusted despite knowing going in it was possible that Brady Cook wasn't going to be able to finish the game, much less start it. Should have been more prepared with the running game, man. Why isn't Luther Burden more involved? Why aren't you finding creative ways to get your playmakers involved? None of that happened on Saturday, and yet, when Brady Cook went out, they were only down 6-0. So the coaching, while I thought left a lot to be desired, wasn't the worst thing in the world. They're just not as good as we thought, man.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
This Missouri team coming into the season had all of the expectations in the world, and they haven't lived up to them. And at a certain point, in my heart of hearts, I probably knew that, but I can convince myself because of the schedule, it's not that bad. They might be able to come together eventually, and it just never did.
Well, and last week, you and I went back and forth of if they lose the Alabama game, and of course, that was before Cook had the hand injury and misses the rest of that game, was the season a failure if they win 10 games? And I said, yes, it is a failure. And, I still think it's a failure. Now that they're pretty much done from the college football playoff, this season's a failure for Mizzou. And the reason I say that is, sure, I can understand some people saying, well, the expectation should change now that Brady Cook is out, and some of that is fair. Let's not act like they were a well-oiled machine prior to the Alabama game. Let's not act like they were a well-oiled machine against in the Texas A&M game and in the Vandy game as well. I've been bringing up, and maybe I was the only one, but I've been bringing up since the Murray State-Buffalo games of, hey, this offense, yeah, they're putting up points, but it's not impressive. It's not impressive for what I'm seeing. There is no explosiveness. They had like the same explosiveness early on in the season as Army. Think about that.
But
an
it
option
was
team.
understandable because the prior season, it took them, 3-4 games before your offense kicked in. And that's why I gave them the benefit of the doubt. And that's why I chose to look at the other side of the ball, because I was more concerned about the defense this season.
Defense has been good, man.
And watching them shut out Murray State and Buffalo, it's thinking, all right, your offense is going to figure it out at some point. And BK's right. Your defense has won you more games than your offense has won you this season.
Absolutely.
And that game against Alabama was the perfect example. But I was going to ask when we were talking about the backup quarterbacks, and I'm asking this like not watching every single college football game, how many teams have a backup plan for their quarterback?
Not many.
Like, unless I'm Texas and I've got Quinn Ewers and Manning.
If you were going to criticize Drinkwitz, I think the place to criticize him is not that he didn't have a backup plan at the quarterback position. That's unfair. There are very few that do. The way that I would criticize Drinkwitz for the way that they've gone about this when Cook has left the game is that they don't seem to have a plan when their backup quarterback is in. And what I mean by that is they're not leaning on the running game, which has been up and down this season. And I do think you felt the loss of Nate Noel in this game because Marcus Carroll is more of an inside runner. You don't run inside against Alabama. Even this Alabama team, that's not the way you beat them. You can run outside, though. And you saw that a few times, especially as they got Jamal Roberts more involved in the second half. By that point, it was already over. They didn't have an answer for their outside running game. And I thought that was something they should have leaned more on in this game. When Cook leaves, especially towards the end of the half, man, when they threw that interception, just lean on the running game. Just keep it going on the ground. Get it to halftime. You're down 6-0, and then you can readjust once you get into the second half. They did the opposite. They tried to throw it. Drew Pine throws the interception. Bama scores basically on the next play. Missouri has turnover on downs before the half. Go into halftime, and then boom, they score coming out of the half. Interception. And it's over. It's over at that point. It's 20-0. You have no chance of coming back. So that was, to me, the biggest frustration in that game is that they didn't adjust their game plan with Drew Pine in there. And we all knew, Alex, T-Bone, everybody listening right now, we all knew that Missouri was likely going to have to go to Drew Pine at some point. I'm pretty surprised they didn't have any kind of a plan when he got in there. So it's frustrating. The season is lost. There is no expectations the rest of the way. We don't know how long Brady Cook is going to be out. Could be a while, might be a couple of weeks. We're not sure yet. Sounds like there should be some more information on that by the end of the day today. The next big test to me, Alex, for Eli Drinkwitz is not something that's going to come this year. It's something that's going to come next year and this offseason. Your starting quarterback next season, in my opinion, is not currently on the roster. I don't know who he is. I don't know who he's playing for.
It's not Drew Pine?
But I don't believe he's currently on the roster. Drew Pine's out of eligibility, so it can't be Drew Pine.
And I got to be honest, if I'm Drew Pine after that game, I don't know if I want to play another football game.
Man, I thought Connor Bazelak was bad.
The next big test for Eli Drinkwitz is, can you find a legitimate starting quarterback at the collegiate level? Because so far he hasn't. Brady Cook wasn't his signing. He signed with Missouri when Drinkwitz was the head coach, but he committed to Missouri with Barry Odom. Tyler Macon committed to Barry Odom. All of the guys that have committed to Drinkwitz are either no longer on the roster or, like Sam Horn, has not really taken any meaningful snaps for Mizzou. I will be curious to see what that looks like, because that's still the one outstanding question that I have for Eli Drinkwitz is, can you find that guy? And can you develop him? And can you make him a good college quarterback? We don't know. We don't know just yet, but that's something that we will learn about in the offseason. The season right now is effectively over. If we wanted to, we could have some kind of a funeral for them.
You want a eulogy?
At some point in the next couple of weeks, Alex, that might be a good way to go about it.
When they lose to Oklahoma this weekend, I'll put together a eulogy. Or next weekend, I'll put
right now.
Oh, good, the bye, just to get ready for,
They don't.
I will tell you this. You guys know I was given serious consideration to go to that Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
And I was going to pay $200+ to go to it.
Now you're all in.
I am so thankful that I'm not going to be going to that
That
game.
goes to show you how I was viewing this season. After Alabama, I really didn't look at the schedule because I figured that Alabama game was making or breaking your season, and now it's like, okay. Cue Sarah McLaughlin.
I broke it. Your season is effectively over. Unfortunately for T-Bone, his team lost this weekend as well. That was much less.
But I feel so much better about my team.
Yeah, as you should. As you should. They got blown out by by Oregon.
It's spanked, dude.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I kind of
Still a good
expected
season.
that. Yeah, they're probably going to win 10 games. I'm going to be happy with it, even if they don't make the playoff.
I think they could win 9.
Relax.
I think they'll probably lose another game at some point the rest of the way.
Have you seen their schedule?
I have.
Come on.
They're a good team, not a great team. They'll win probably 9 games.
They play nobody good on their schedule.
This feels like you lashing out at other people's teams because your team
I'm just
is bad.
Yeah, what the hell, man?
He's going to start tweeting soon.
Oh, great.
That's Alex. He's T-Bone. I'm BK. Hey, if you guys want to get involved in the show today, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved. The YouTube chat is up and running today, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. 101 ESPN app available to you as well. That is sponsored by Schaefer Door Company. So you can check us out in a million different ways. However you listen, we just thank you that you are listening to us today. Coming up next, Alex, there was a moment over the weekend that felt like I was reliving a memory from my past, and I didn't enjoy it one bit. I'll tell you what that was next year on 101 ESPN.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm.
Are we waiting on your little pill to hit home base?
No, I got a chewable. It works faster.
Oh, so we can get naughtier sooner?
And longer.
Victory Men's Health has launched VictoryRx.com. Get prescribed our #1 ED medication. It has the combined power of Cialis and Viagra in a chewable tablet and better absorption. It's easy. Get a consultation on VictoryRx.com and your ED chewable. VictoryRx.com, where men's sexual health matters.
As someone who's juggling jobs, my watch and my wallet stay locked in. If I decide to eat out, it's gotta be quick and affordable. Shout out to the McDonald's app. I can order my faves, pay ahead of time, and get 25% off when I spend more than $10. Now I can dig into a crispy basket of fries, a creamy Oreo McFlurry, or even a tender and juicy 10-piece chicken McNuggets. Pull up to Mickey D's. Your faves are waiting for you. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Offer valid through 12/29/24. Participating McDonald's. Valid once a day. Excludes tax. Must opt into rewards. Oreo is a registered trademark of Mondelez International Group used under license.
Gets into the paint, scoop at the left side. Shaw for the flush.
Mizzou men's basketball is right around the corner, and we need you to purchase season tickets. The 5th-ranked recruiting class and 13th-ranked transfer class come to Mizzou with high expectation. Season tickets are the only way to guarantee a seat as your Tigers take on marquee opponents Kansas, Kentucky, Arkansas, and California. Do your part in supporting Mizzou hoops with season tickets starting as low as $14 a game. Purchase your tickets today at mutigers.com.
You wouldn't trust a butcher to babysit your pet pig. You wouldn't trust a lumberjack to repair your antiques. Or a professional wrestler to be your massage therapist. So why would you trust anyone but AMCO to fix your car? For over 50 years, we've been the trusted experts in transmission repair.
AMCO offers easy payment plan options for most any credit situation, so you can fix it fast and pay it off slow at AMCO.
AA MCO.
Great news at Auto Center's Nissan Herculaneum. Their fall into savings event, well, that has been extended through the month of October. Low finance rates available right now, like 0% APR on Pathfinders, Rogues, and Altimas, plus 0.9% APR for 60 months on Frontier. Low lease payment options like $329 per month on the 2024 Rogue. You're going to love the savings and the financing deals that they have at Auto Centers Nissan. They've got over 700 new and used vehicles all in one location. The largest and best used selection in St. Louis. You're bound to find the perfect vehicle to match your lifestyle and your budget. New Nissans and select used vehicles come with their complimentary lifetime warranty. New Nissans come with a 30-day new car return promise and complimentary Nissan maintenance plan. When you head out to Herculaneum, tell them Anthony Stalter from 101 ESPN sent you. If you check them out online, view them at autocentersnissan.com. It's Auto Centers Nissan Herculaneum.
Open up your 101 mobile app for your chance to win free tickets to Mr. Blue Sky, a tribute to Electric Light Orchestra. Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why. On November 22nd at the pageant.
ELO's Mr. Blue Sky, it's iconic.
Tickets for Mr. Blue Sky, a tribute to ELO, are on sale now. But we've got your chance at winning free tickets for the show. Get entered to win now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
Cortez delivers. Freeman hits the ball to right field. She is gone! Gibby! Meet Freddie! Game 1 of the World Series!
Oh, boy. Alex, I don't know how you felt watching that on Friday night as Freddie Freeman hits that walk-off grand slam, the first one that we've seen in a World Series, but I had flashbacks. It felt like it was 10 years all over again. And we talked about this, last week, 2 weeks ago? By the way, that audio courtesy of Fox Sports. We talked about the Michael Wacha moment where that ended up being
death of the
end of the Cardinals as we knew them. And we didn't realize it at the time, but now you can look back and be like, man, that was it. That was the moment.
Wacha stepped out of that bullpen. You heard the trumpets, but in the bad way.
Yeah.
That felt that way for the Yankees, potentially. I don't know how the rest of this series is going to go. Down 2-0. It's entirely possible they come back and win this World Series. Unlikely, but possible. And then they will look at that and be like, damn, remember when that happened? I really felt bad at that moment in time. I would bet against it. That felt to me like a really critical moment for Boone. I don't know if he's going to get fired. I would bet against it. When he gets fired, though, I think you will point back to that exact moment and say, that's when we should have known it wasn't going to work. Because I think for a lot of fans here in St. Louis, when you think about Mike Matheny, you think back to that moment as the moment that you knew. Whether it was that moment you knew and you were ready for him to be fired then, or that moment you knew and then 3 years later you looked back on it and said, I should have known 4 years ago that this wasn't going to work with Mike Matheny as the manager here in St. Louis. How did you feel watching it, Alex? Because you were born and raised here in St. Louis, and so that moment in 2014 has some really personal feelings for you. Did it bring back some bad memories?
Well, I tried to bury that down as deep as you can so you don't remember it, but yeah, it does. The moment Nestor Cortez came out of that bullpen, you were thinking this one's over. Because you hadn't seen the guy since the middle of September. That was the Michael Wacha situation. And you're right. Like, when I think back of the Mike Matheny era, I don't think back to the World Series and then nearly getting to the World Series in back-to-back years. I think of that 2014 game. I think of that Michael Wacha coming out of the bullpen. And the thing about it with the Yankees and Aaron Boone is I actually think Aaron Boone did a pretty good job all the way up until that point, finding a way. Now, the path was super simple to get to this point if you're going to go off of that. But I thought he managed the team well. He found ways to get through. You had stars coming up. But that is the moment, and especially on the big stage in New York, that's the moment you can't have happen. You can't have that happen to you as a manager of the Yankees because that is your death. Because you bring in a guy who hasn't pitched for over a month. You put
That's
him in
the thing,
that
man.
big of a situation. This isn't like it was the 7th inning and Nestor Cortez just walked a guy and then hit a guy and then gave it up. He stepped to the mound and he threw a pitch that was just like, yeah, cool, this gone. So that felt like the death of the Yankees. Like, not so much reliving that bad memory, because thanks for bringing that up once again, BK.
You're welcome.
That just felt like the end of the Yankees run. That felt like we might see a sweep in this now, because you have that big of a moment in game 1 of a World Series. As a team, it's hard to come back from that.
They also felt like they had won that game multiple times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the Dodgers just found a way to come back. So if you didn't have any other alternative, I would have understood. But they did. That's the thing that's so frustrating, is you needed a left-handed pitcher in that spot, because you've got Freddie Freeman, who just absolutely destroys right-handed pitchers. And I know he's not at 100%, but as we saw, one swing, one moment, one game, I trust Freddie Freeman to come through in a big spot. So I want to make it as difficult as possible. And so there were some reasons why, in that moment, I can understand going to Nestor Cortez. Had he been pitching over the course of the last month at any point in any series? He hadn't, and so it becomes more difficult to be able to defend. But this year, Nestor Cortez was good against left-handed hitters. So, lefty going up against Freddie Freeman, I get that. But you've got somebody else. Tim Hill is your guy in that spot. That's it. Just go to Tim Hill. He's not a household name, but he's a pretty good reliever, and he's really good against left-handed hitters. That's his spot. Not going to him in that moment is ultimately what's going to look, we're going to look back on it. Just if you're thinking about Aaron Boone and what his next iteration of his managing career is in New York, that will be the moment that defines him. Right or wrong, that will be the moment that Yankees fans think about.
Well, and the tough part for Aaron Boone is, that Yankees team, why do they get in that spot where it's, I think, 2-2, if I remember correctly, where the bases become loaded and you got left on left with Freeman, is because the thing that also gets tied to managers is the fundamentals of the baseball team of the Yankees.
Yeah.
And what leads to the tying run coming across, a bad throw on a line drive off of the wall by, I think it was Ohtani. And the throw in skips away from the second baseman. Nobody's there to back up that throw. Ohtani gets a third, sacrifice fly later. Boom, it's a tie game. Created by a misplay by the Yankees defense, which they've not played clean baseball in October, both on the base paths, with their fielding. And now you get to that moment where it was, you have to go left on left there to go against Ohtani and Freeman in that spot.
Correct.
I totally agree with that, but you're 100% right. You've got to go to Hill in that situation. Falling victim of the Cortez thing is falling for the name recognition and knowing you need a left on left and not playing into the fact that, his bullpens look good. Yeah, well, we haven't seen what he's looked like against hitters so far, and he hasn't pitched in a month. And the first batters you're going to see in a month from pitching, it's just casually Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman.
Right.
Yeah, good luck. Even the best relievers in baseball are going to have a tough time coming back from a month without pitching to go up against those guys.
And since you're talking about that Timothy Hill, and you mentioned it, like, this is a guy who has pitched already in the postseason.
Yeah.
This is a guy who
He's a really solid reliever.
Yeah, and again, I know it's not name recognition, but you know what I'm not going to do? Put a guy who hasn't pitched since September 18th in the 10th inning against Freddie Freeman just because he's a left-handed hitter.
And by the way, doesn't come out of the bullpen very often.
Like this, yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
That's the other thing for me is, look, I understand this thought process of, hey, we're going to have starters come out of the bullpen in October. I mean, the Rangers did that to perfection last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, there are guys that just do not do that very well. And Cortez might be one of them because he's not used to coming out of the bullpen as a reliever. He's a starter, so he goes through a warm-up. He pitches innings like 1 through 5, 1 through 6. He's not used to the idea of warming up in October, but B, let alone warming up in the bullpen and coming into the middle of a game. That's the part that also baffles me, and it baffled me at the time when Matheny did it with Waka.
The last time that Nestor Cortez had any significant bullpen experience was 2021. So it's been 3 years since Nestor Cortez has had, and that was only 8 games. Not like he was doing it regularly, but he got a few appearances there as a reliever. 2020 in the COVID season, he had 4. You have to go back to 2019 for the last time that he had any real opportunities, and he had 32 appearances as a reliever back in 2019. That was 5 years ago.
What was his ERA? Please tell me it was high.
2019, Nestor Cortez as a reliever, ERA 5.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. Well, and we saw this in that Padres-Dodgers series. The one thing you can't do as a manager is give the other team life. Give the other team reason to believe that they're not out of this. And you didn't just give a team reason to believe they're not out of this. You just gave a team a reason to believe that they can't lose.
There's been a lot of negativity in this segment, mostly relating to decision-making by the Yankees manager and what he decided to do. Dude, this series has been amazing.
Oh, it's been fun.
Like, first 2 games of this series, It's been really close. There's been huge moments by big-time players. I was locked in on Friday night watching that game. The numbers that it has done from a ratings perspective are completely unsurprisingly amazing. It's one of the most watched World Series that we've seen in recent memory. It's up like 50% compared to where it was this time last year, which was the lowest watched World Series ever. The stars have shown out. Judge continues to struggle. Ohtani has come up with huge moments. Freddie Freeman, who is as likable as any human being that you'll see in Major League Baseball, came up with basically the exact same moment that we saw 40 years ago. Like, it's been an amazing World Series thus far. My only hope is, can we get one? Can the Yankees at least get one when they go back home? Because if they do, you'll send it back and you'll have an interesting series down the stretch. You'll at least get it to 5. But man, if this ends up being a sweep, I feel like that will leave me wanting more from what has been so far an excellent World Series between two really good but flawed teams. You guys see the report that apparently the Dodgers are going to be in on Soto this offseason?
Of course they are. That's called chaos, BK, and I love it.
We talked about this a little off air last week, BK, I think on Thursday. I know some people hate this idea of the Dodgers and Yankees World Series. I don't view either of these teams really as villains. That's how you become a villain. You win the World Series, you make the move that essentially the Warriors did, which was sign Kevin Durant, you get Juan Soto. Oh, by the way, they're kind of in on that other right-handed guy that throws like 100 in Japan that's potentially going to be posted this year. Like, that's how you become the villain. If the Dodgers win the World Series,
too. Might as well. Why not?
Hell, trade for Sonny Gray. We'd give him away.
Oh, and
We're trying
Arenado.
to get rid of money.
I could actually totally see that. That makes all the sense in the world.
And Arenado, just throw in.
Nah, he stinks.
Let's go.
Dude, he'd be good with him. The singles hitter, he'd be Tommy Edman.
Dude,
he's making $30 million a year.
Slugging for home runs, man. What are you talking about?
Arenado would be a postseason hero on the Dodgers because that's how it goes for the Cardinals.
He would not.
Yeah, he would.
No chance.
I guarantee you he could. Guarantee it.
I want to say there's no chance of it, but then I also think, and I'm like, but he's a former Cardinal that's playing in the postseason. So
he would be an MVP of a divisional round, a championship series, or a World Series at some point.
He'd be the NLCS MVP next year. That's the way that would work.
Man, you guys are giving Arenado way too much credit.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. You can check us out on YouTube. Get any questions in over there as well. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL. Coming up next, NFL Quick Hitters on a Sunday that I thought was going to be super boring and a big letdown compared to last week. It was the opposite. Lived up to every possible expectation. We'll break down a few of the key games coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Coverage of 101 ESPN is presented by Onder Law Injury Lawyers. GetJim.com. 101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week.
Congratulations to Rick Cacone from O'Fallon, Missouri. He was just named our 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now to be the next 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week and take home a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues game. Learn more at 101ESPN.com.
Men, if you're suffering from erectile dysfunction or PE, Paramount Men's Medical Center will get your sex life back in just one visit. Their painless, breakthrough medical treatments eliminate ED and PE. Here's a specialist in men's health.
I'm Dr. Simovitz. Have Viagra or Cialis let you down? Paramount Men's Medical Center offers the most effective treatments that eliminate ED and PE, with men lasting longer than ever. 98% of patients see instant results on their first visit.
Paramount Men's Medical Center's breakthrough treatments will restore your sex life regardless of age or medical history. Your consultation and first treatment are free. Plus, you'll see instant results in the office. Plus, qualified patients will have their testosterone checked free. Call 314-887-4442. 314-887-4442. To regain your sex life in just one visit, call now. 314-887-4442.
Right now, 38 states allow for sports betting, including 7 of Missouri's neighboring states. Amendment 2 gives Missouri sports fans the freedom to bet on games too, and that will generate over $100 million for our schools without raising property taxes. Amendment 2 is endorsed by the Chiefs, Cardinals, Royals, Blues, and Missouri's 2 professional soccer teams, the KC Current and St. Louis City. These days, Republicans and Democrats don't agree on much, but the Republican and Democratic candidates for governor are both supporting Amendment 2 because it means more money for education. Amendment 2 isn't like the lottery. There's a strong constitutional guarantee. The new money from sports betting will go to our schools. $100 million for education without raising property taxes. Amendment 2 is endorsed by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the Kansas City Star. Vote yes on 2. Paid for by Winning for Missouri Education. Mike Pridmore, Treasurer.
As we're approaching winter, Classic Air Care is here to keep your home comfortable. With over 3,000 five-star Google reviews, you can always count on them for exceptional service. That's why so many customers continue to turn to Classic Air Care for their home service needs. They're ready to provide same-day service if the worst happens. But the best way to prevent a breakdown is with regular maintenance. Call Classic Air Care today and schedule your $89 furnace tune-up. For all your plumbing, heating, and cooling needs, visit ClassicAirCare.com. Classic Air Care, making people comfortable since 1926.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.
If you've been injured in a car wreck, you need the best. Let us make your case our cause. Car accident? Call Onder Law for a free review at 314 or 618-9000000.
Hi St. Louis, Roman Berkey here with my friends from Together Credit Union. I like getting paid to save, whether I'm at City Park or in my local Together Credit Union branch. With the new Empowered Checking from Together Credit Union, you get rewarded for saving, not spending. Get paid to save, like me, with Together Credit Union. Open your Empowered Checking account today. See you on the pitch and thank you for cheering City SC.
Tanner Hendrickson here at the Sports Center. Update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Blues fell to the Canadians over the weekend by a final score of 5-2. They are off again today. They'll be back in action tomorrow as they visit the Ottawa Senators. Well, pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. And then puck drop at 6 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Coming up tonight here, we've got Monday Night Football for you. Steelers versus Giants. Pregame coverage starts at 6:30. This portion update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
It's time for some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. So it was an interesting Sunday in the NFL, Alex. Better than I was anticipating. I thought these games would honestly be a snooze fest. Didn't see a whole lot of intrigue on this schedule. And then we got to Sunday, and man, a whole lot of these ended up coming down to the wire.
Yeah. I think the morning slate, all but 2 of them did.
It was amazing.
At Costco, and I had Red Zone on my phone, and I was screaming from the mountaintops.
Dolphins-Cardinals was outstanding. The finish was great. The Jets found a way to blow it once again against the Patriots.
Which was great.
They're done. I don't want to have a single conversation about the Jets the rest of the way. I hope we, as a group, can agree to that.
That won't last.
I'm sick of Aaron Rodgers. That guy is the biggest problem on their team. He's terrible. He's a bottom 10 quarterback in the league right now. He can't move. He got Devontae Adams, who's his best friend, and now the offense still has no way to function. It's
Garrett Wilson actually outplayed Devontae Adams in that game, which is just wild to say.
The Bucs found a way to stay afloat despite not having any of their receivers. Cade Otton has become the best tight end in the NFL suddenly. The Packers found a way, despite losing Jordan Love in that game, to overcome the Jaguars. Jaguars, by the way, look competent offensively suddenly again. And then let's get to a couple of these. Let's start with the Washington Commanders, who surprisingly had Jaden Daniels available to them on Sunday. Would have been nice to know that last week on Friday at about 12:15.
Why, man? What happened?
It's almost like someone said you shouldn't take that
It's
game.
almost like somebody planned that he wasn't going to be playing.
Well, he did. And then Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback for the Chicago Bears, decided before the game was over to taunt the fans on the final play of the game. And as he's taunting the fans, the play begins, the Hail Mary starts, and here's what it sounded like.
Steps up, fires, heads towards the end zone. It is
Somebody flipped a table in the middle of that.
If you don't know what just happened based on that audio, I don't blame you. That was based on that was courtesy of the Washington Commanders radio network. Jaden Daniels ran around in the backfield for 10 seconds before launching the ball about 60 yards in the air down the field. It gets tipped up behind the mass group of individuals where Noah Brown, who Tyreek Stevenson was supposed to have manned up one-on-one, is standing there with his outstretched arms to catch a Hail Mary to win the football game.
Love it.
18-15. Alex, what did you take away from the Commanders' win over the Bears?
They've just got something special this season because, until that play, it kind of was a boring game because they set it up to where it's got number 1, number 2 overall picks, and you were expecting high-powered offense. But, Jaden Daniels has got a banged-up rib. Caleb Williams some nights looks good, some nights doesn't look good. But that final play, I can't say that I expected that, but you knew Washington was going to find a way to come into a game. Again, not off of a Hail Mary. Maybe you're thinking they could drive down the field and at least keep it competitive, but it's hard to sit here and doubt Washington anymore. I understand that their schedule has been somewhat easy. You look at the 6-2 record, but man, when you've got a quarterback doing what Jaden Daniels is doing, it's the exact same situation as Stroud last year. You just look at it and you're like, they've got something special.
Yeah, they found their franchise quarterback. It's not just from the Hail Mary, because let's be honest, that's a lot of luck that's involved in that touchdown play. But, man, he looks better than Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams has been good, but he really looked off in that game against Washington. And I don't think Washington has a great defense. I think they're probably better than we give them credit for.
It's been better the last few weeks, but they've also played against less than stellar offenses.
That was the game where I was like, okay, Washington probably had the better pick than what the Bears did, and the Bears had their selection of any quarterback they wanted with that number 1 overall pick. Hey, man, Washington's doing something special. I don't know if they're going to make a lot of noise in the NFC playoffs. They're a hell of a lot of fun to watch, and they're going to be fun to watch for the years coming.
I look around at the NFC, and I can list off 2 or 3 teams that I believe are better than the Washington Commanders, and then after that, I think it's open field.
I think the Lions are definitely better than
Agreed.
them.
If Jordan Love's healthy, I think the Packers are better.
I agree with that.
I don't know if I can name.
I think that's probably it.
I don't know if I can name.
I'm sure are better. The Vikings might be. The Bears, as we saw on Sunday, on any given day, they could be better. The Eagles could be better on any given day. But if I'm going into a Sunday, the only teams that I'm for sure selecting over them would be the Lions and the Packers.
Yeah, if you give me any of these other quarterbacks, like if you say Sam Darnold or Jaden Daniels, I'm taking Daniels any day of the week. Same can be said with Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels. I just, when you've got a quarterback that's feeling as confident as he is right now, you can't deny that team.
If you were starting a team today, would you rather have Jaden Daniels or Jordan Love?
Jaden Daniels.
I think I would go Jordan Love. I've been really impressed with what I have seen from him this year when he's been healthy.
I think I would go Jaden Daniels. It's really close. You guys know how much I love, no pun intended, Jordan Love. That's it, though. That's the only NFC quarterback that I would take right now, long-term, over Jaden Daniels, and maybe even for today. If you're just trying to win a game today, it might be the only guy that I'm taking 1-for-1 over Jaden Daniels. It's been really fun to watch him so far. I didn't know if he would have the same success as he had in college, and it's translated in every possible way.
What's wild about it is, just look at the players around him.
Yeah, dude, it's one guy.
And
Terry McLaurin and then a bunch of also-rans. With any other quarterback, we'd be like, well, he's play fantasy football. You starting Zach Ertz? No. Starting Noah Brown? Absolutely not.
Like, because at least last year with Stroud, you had Nico Collins, where you like, at least you should understand. And Tank Dell. Yeah, you understand. Like,
and Dalton Schultz is a really solid tight end. Like,
Terry
they had
McLaurin,
some guys.
I thought was just like, I thought the career was over for Terry McLaurin.
Oh, I like Terry. I don't want to undersell what Terry McLaurin has been so far. He's had 1,000 yards basically every season of his career, but that's it. It's just one guy. And McLaurin's like a really nice number one. Not an elite guy. Like, Nico is an elite number one NFL wide receiver right now. What he's doing is really nothing short of sensational. All right, we got to talk about another guy that might be a bust, though. On the other side of former first-round picks, I could not have been more all in on Anthony Richardson before the season.
We know, buddy.
I could not be more all out on Anthony Richardson as of today. Here's what he had to say after the game when asked about why he ended up coming out for a couple of plays against the Texans.
Man, tired. I ain't gonna lie. That was a lot of running right there, what I did, and I don't think I was gonna be able to go that next play. So I just, just told Sam I just needed a break right there.
So he said, "You only live once."
He asked out of a game because he was tired.
Good thing he's in shape.
And then admitted it publicly. Dude, that's one of those things that you just don't say. Even if it's true, you can't say. You have to come up with a lie.
Let's be honest. He had a pretty good lie if he wanted it, because the play prior, when he comes out, he gets drilled right in the Charlie horse. You know, maybe you just say, oh, kind of a little stinger right there. They hit me right in the perfect spot. Leg kind of went out on me a little bit. I had to come out for that play.
At one point in this game, he was 2 for 14 for 81 yards, touchdown, and an interception.
Attaboy.
2 for 14, Alex. He finished the day 10 for 32. 10 for 32. He was sacked 5 times, and he completed 10 passes. It's over. I don't know how they continue running him out there. It's not the best thing for your team. The players eventually know this. It's the same thing that happened with the Carolina Panthers, where eventually, man, you can't keep allowing the rest of your roster to run out there giving you a chance to win every Sunday and have that dude be the problem. The players are smart. They know what's going on. You're playing against Minnesota next week. You think it's going to look better? And then you've got Buffalo, and a couple of weeks from then, Detroit. You've got to go to Joe Flacco. I can't believe I'm saying this in the year of our Lord 2024. Joe Flacco has to be their starting quarterback next week. You can't go back to Anthony Richardson after that performance.
Well, when you said that, people had to be furious that he's asking out of the game. I think Colts fans are probably like, cool, get out of the game.
Fair.
Because when you look at the season, the only reason that the Colts are where they're at right now is because of Joe Flacco. Like, Anthony Richardson has not been the reason for success this season, if you're going to even call it success. So if I'm a Colts fan right now, cool, be done with Anthony Richardson, because my best path to a playoff spot is Joe Flacco as my starting quarterback, and then we'll figure out this mess next season. You're done with this guy.
Yeah, they have to go to Joe Flacco because they have a playoff caliber roster. Now, I don't know how good their actual defense is. Like, they can't stop the run, but that's a playoff caliber roster. That roster should be able to win about, what, 9, 10 games?
Give you a
somewhere
chance.
in that range to give you a chance to get into the playoffs.
They should have won this week, and then he probably gets a 9 or 10.
Exactly. And you look at Anthony Richardson, look, there's no denying the arm talent is there. I mean, he can throw the deep ball as good as anyone in the league. The problem is he can't read a defense to save his life. And that's where you see the 2 for 15. And sure, you need to use him as a running quarterback. At least Cam Newton could throw the ball a little bit, And that's who we kind of compare him to. Hey, he's probably going to be like Cam Newton. You run the ball with him, see if he can throw it as well. He can't throw. They've got to turn to Joe Flacco, or they will be missing the playoffs.
With Joe Flacco as the quarterback, you're 2-1, and you've had 7 touchdowns and 1 interception. There's no excuse for Anthony Richardson to keep going back out. You can't even use he was our top pick and we have to go with him. No, you don't. Carolina just moved away from their top pick a year after selecting him first overall. You don't have to. You move past it pretty quick because playoffs are more important.
From the 980, BK, it seems like all the quarterbacks that you are high on end up not being great. You were high on Richardson. You were high on the Chargers quarterback, Justin Herbert. When you were saying that you would potentially rather have him than Lamar Jackson, that seemed like a ridiculous comment in and of itself. And now it's an even bigger joke that you said it.
Yeah.
You like Bryce Young, too.
To make it clear that Lamar is amazing, and I want to see him in the biggest moments again. He's been outstanding. He's probably the favorite as of today to win the MVP. I want to see him in the playoffs again because we've seen this before. He wins MVP. This will be his third one. And then in the playoffs, it looks a little bit different because teams game plan for him a little differently. We'll see. We'll see what that looks like. I think Lamar's amazing. Top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Justin Herbert's really good. I don't know if he's better than Lamar. As of today, I would take Lamar over Justin Herbert. That take looks terrible. That being said, yeah, I was wrong on Anthony Richardson. I was also right on CJ Stroud. And this year, I think I'm right on Jaden Daniels, who I said I would really consider taking number 1 overall. So we all get this stuff wrong. The NFL gets this stuff wrong, man. I'm giving you my opinions. That's all I can do. Alex, one other thing here on the NFL Sunday slate. For you, what was the biggest surprise in terms of a result from the weekend? Was it the Eagles beating the Bengals, the Browns at home taking down the Baltimore Ravens, the Cardinals beating the Dolphins in Tua's return, Patriots winning head-to-head against the New York Jets? Which of those was, to you, the biggest surprise from the weekend?
Probably the Eagles over the Bengals. I mean, the Patriots one, I had a feeling the Jets were going to fall apart. Same can be said about the, what was the first one that you brought up? I'm blanking on it right now.
Cardinals and Miami is one of them.
Cardinals and the Browns. The Browns, we all said on Friday that the Browns are going to make that a game. I think it was the Eagles-Bengals. Not because I think the Eagles are this great team. I am surprised at how bad Cincinnati is right now. I knew that the vibes were bad, and I said that in preseason, or I was not investing any stock in them. I didn't think they were this bad.
You know, talk about a take that I had that was bad. That's the take.
The Bengals will be fine?
Yeah.
I don't think the Eagles are that good. Now, the Eagles have a hell of a chess piece in Saquon Barkley that just goes out there and can dictate the outcome of a game. But I still think their defense is a little flawed, and frankly, Jalen Hurts is so inconsistent, I can't bank on it. I didn't expect that Cincinnati Bengals to be this bad.
Yeah, I think that's the most surprising one for me because I thought the Bengals were starting to kind of turn the corner. I don't remember who it was they lost to, but they played a game where they lost, and it was they played pretty well in that game, and I thought, okay, they're finally starting to turn this around. And since then, they barely beat the Giants, and then they get shellacked at home again by the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think the Eagles might actually be better than we were giving them credit for.
I think
they just weren't healthy. When they didn't have Brown, they didn't have Smith, it looked off. Now they've been playing good football. Now they got all their pieces on the board.
I still don't believe it.
I don't either.
I still think it's totally fraudulent. I just don't know when it's going to matter. Jacksonville coming up. Dallas, you want to talk about a fraud. Washington, the Rams, Baltimore, Carolina, Pittsburgh. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Probably going to win that division at this point. Or they'll be in the playoffs, and it'll be between them and Washington to potentially win the division. I just don't believe in them. But I don't believe in a lot of the teams in the NFC, so who knows? Weird stuff's going to happen. The only team that I truly am all in on is Detroit. Detroit's really good. That team's amazing. Yep. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Time for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. We got a really nice email. This one comes from Kevin.
Oh, Kevin.
Kevin, what'd you say,
Forwarded
buddy?
this by our boss.
What'd you say, buddy?
We've been getting a lot of emails lately. This one is pertaining to me specifically.
Oh.
So, like you, not us?
Yeah, just me. I understand that sometimes tough decisions have to be made. You have to get rid of the morning show. But how can you possibly keep BK? He's the single worst person on radio.
Amen, Kevin.
Jesus. Look, man.
If you want to check out the podcast, 101ESPN.com, the free 101 ESPN app, which is presented by Schaefer Door Company. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
I would imagine that
man,
Kevin will probably be listening back to the podcast today.
That was tough, man.
The single worst person on radio.
Not like...
I think Kevin Slayton's still doing a radio show, so I'm not sure I agree with that. But hey,
Whoa, maybe that was him.
All right.
Who's just trying to like deflect it back to somebody else.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. All right, from the 636, guys, I think Joe Burrow is overrated at this point. Do you still consider him to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? Oh yeah, Joe Burrow's the one guy I'm scared of. He still scares me.
You can't be scared of him if they're not in the playoffs.
That's the thing. If they get into the postseason at 9-8, 10-7, as a Chiefs fan, I will still fear them finding a way because it's Joe Burrow. So yeah, I still consider him to be a top 5 quarterback. I don't really understand what's going on with him though this year because the offense hasn't looked right. And it is interesting to me that every time T. Higgins misses a game, the offense just crumbles.
Yeah.
I don't understand that one at all. And if you're a general manager in place and trying to figure out what do we do here, at some point you've got to consider re-signing T. Higgins, right?
Oh yeah, you have to.
And just saying, you know what, this is who we are as a team, and if that means that our defense stinks for the next 5 years, so be it.
I think one element that they're realizing they needed more than they thought they did was a running game. Like, I like Chase Brown, but you don't have the same impact of having like a go-to running back to where like teams don't know what you're going to do, because more times than not, I think teams expect Joe Burrow to drop back and throw the ball. I mean, we've seen that with the Baltimore Ravens and now what they look like with Derrick Henry. You saw that with the Dallas Cowboys this season. Even the Houston Texans, when they didn't have Joe Mixon. When you don't have that option to run the ball and have like an actual impact in the game, it makes your offense a little bit one-sided.
Yeah, I don't know if I still view Burrow as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I mean, I understand this whole, like, well, their offense, it's not clicking. You know who part of that's on? Part of that's on the quarterback. And Joe Burrow doesn't really seem to strike as much fear into me anymore as he did, whatever it was, a year, 2 years ago, especially 2 years ago when he got the Bengals to the Super Bowl. I know a lot of people want to point at Zach Taylor and his offense, or maybe Jamar Chase holding out. Hey, man, at some point it comes down to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's got to be the guy that lifts everybody up around him. So I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL anymore.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, do you think the World Series is going to end up going back to L.A.? It's 3, right? That's the way we're doing this now?
2-3-2. No.
I don't think so, if I'm being honest.
I don't think they can.
I think it goes 5. I think the Yankees will get 1, but I think that'll be it. I think it goes 5.
Mm-hmm. I'm a little wondering if we see a sweep. When you lose, when Aaron Judge isn't as impactful as he has been, and you've been relying on Giancarlo Stanton to really carry your team, I don't know if your pitching is going to be able to withstand what the Dodgers have right now, because they don't just have Ohtani and Betts and Freeman. I mean, they're going down the lineups to Tommy Edman and Kike Hernandez. Like, they've got a deeper lineup offensively than I think the Yankees can handle.
Yeah, I think at best case scenario for the Yankees, they lose this in 5. I'm kind of with Alex. So, like, right now, it is certainly trending towards a sweep because everybody's hitting in that Dodgers lineup. There's not an easy out, and their pitching just seems to be a little, not by much, but just a little bit better than what the Yankees is.
I think the Dodgers, we're going to look back on it, and how are we going to remember this team if they end up winning this World Series? I think that's going to be an interesting question, because it feels weird to say about a team that won almost 100 games, but they underperformed this year.
Yeah.
They didn't really have a rotation, and they found a way to piece it together, and then you get into the postseason, and all the stars, it looks the way that we all expected it to going into the regular season, and ultimately, that's what Dodgers fans care about. In a lot of ways, they're like Cardinals fans where, hey, the regular season, whatever. It matters what you do in October, and finally the team has seemingly come together in October. So I think Dodgers fans, well, obviously they win a World Series. They'll remember it fondly. They'll remember this team as meeting every possible expectations, how will we remember them nationally?
I don't know how the best word is to describe them.
Does it kind of depend on what comes next?
Yeah, because like, you know who I think they could end up becoming is a lot like what the Astros had in their run, which is they went to what, like 8 straight ALCSs or something unbelievable like that. I don't know if they're going to like reel off like back-to-back World Series or win 3 of 4. I can see where they are a major threat in the National League for the next 5 to 10 years because you're right, whatever comes next. I mean, if they're in talks to add Juan Soto, guys, they're going to be in the conversation for Juan Soto, that pitcher that's coming over from Japan. They'll be in on Corbin Burns. They'll be in on Willie Adames to upgrade their shortstop
position. And they'll be checking out every trade possibility of bringing in arms. And you're getting Shohei Ohtani back as a pitcher next year.
I think there's a chance we look back on this and go, man, that was the worst team that the Dodgers had. I think they're going to go on a Astros-type run where you look at it and go, man, for a 7-year stretch, they made the NLCS like 6 of 7 or all 7 years.
A little bit of news to pass along. First thing, Mizzou just got a commitment from a 4-star small forward, Nicholas Randall, out of Vashon. So congratulations, Nicholas Randall from Vashon right here in St. Louis. 2025 4-star recruit, 6'8" small forward. He has officially committed to the University of Missouri. The Chiefs have made a trade. Josh Uche, who is a outside linebacker, defensive end, and edge rusher for the Patriots. He no longer is with the Patriots. He was a 2020 second-round pick, had a really good year in 2022, has fallen off a bit since then. He has been traded to the Kansas City Chiefs for a 6th-round pick. So the Chiefs added DeAndre Hopkins last week. They added an edge rusher this week, 26-year-old former second-round pick from the New England Patriots. Again, going in return is a 6th-round pick.
That's nothing to give up for...
like a solid rotational pass rusher?
Yeah.
Nice move.
Man, I hate the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They're such a villain in the NFL.
They're going to win again.
I hate them.
Their offense looked good yesterday.
Of course.
Travis Kelce looked amazing.
Travis Kelce's waking up right now, but then, of course, the first big play that they had passing was to DeAndre Hopkins, and everyone's like, yeah, it checks out.
We all saw it coming.
It checks out.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If I told you right now, Brady Cook out the rest of the year, I don't know that he will be, but if I told you that he is, how many games today would you predict Mizzou to win the rest of the way? We'll give you our answers to that, hear from you guys as well, coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alex, when I bet, I do so exclusively on the Circa Sports app because I want to make sure that I'm winning the most money possible. Winning at sports betting is not the easiest thing to do. And so if I'm going to be winning, hey, man, I'm going to win the most money possible. That's exclusively over at Circa Sports in Illinois. They recommend shop around, check out what DraftKings has to offer, see what FanDuel has to offer. They believe you're going to get the best prices and win the most money when you bet with Circa. And that's what I'm going to be doing for the World Series. Game 3, Alex, I love a couple of the special props that they have available to me. One of them is Max Muncy home run and a Dodgers victory. That is 8-1. I like those odds. I like this one even more, though. A Max Muncy home run, a Mookie Betts home run, and the Dodgers to win. 45-1 odds on that one. I'm winning a bunch of money with this bet on Circa Sports.
BK's playing in my type of water where you're going those big plays, parlaying them together because you're bringing in the most money possible. Circa's not limiting players based off of their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other sports books who do limit winning players. So download the app today, whether you're doing those big parlays, those futures, or you're just doing the tight money line splits because you want to bring in a little cash. All of those are available for you on a Circa Sports Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
All right, so how many games can Mizzou realistically win if Brady Cook is out the rest of the year? With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You ready? 1, 2, 3,
0.
All right, coming up next.
Let's get to Illinois.
Oh, 10.
10 more games? They don't have that many, man.
Well, they can win up to 10.
The Tigers are 6-2. They just got their butts whooped against Alabama on the road. Drew Pine, I mean, it just wasn't a good day. Wasn't a good day for my guy, Drew Pine.
Does he have good days?
He had a couple at Notre Dame, and I'm not seeing it. I don't know how that happened. He apparently went like 8-2 as their starter.
No.
I have
they must have been
idea
running the ball.
I have no idea how that happened. I'm going to have to do some research this week on what they did to overcome that. 6 for 12, 42 yards, 3 interceptions was his ultimate stat line there. Alex, if I told you today the final 4 games, Oklahoma at home, Arkansas at home, and then 2 road games at South Carolina and at Mississippi State. How many of those can Missouri win if they don't have Brady Cook?
I mean, realistically, I think 1. I don't know how you can win games if this is your offense. Like, I imagine you're going to be able to adjust with Drew Pine if he's your starter and you put him a little bit more into the game plan, but weren't you already doing that with the potential of Brady Cook not being healthy for you? So I look at the 2 home games and I say, okay, maybe you could pull out a victory in one of those. But, man, if this is the offense that you're going to throw out there to where you get blanked by Alabama, but then the prior game when Brady Cook was injured, your offense wasn't doing anything against Auburn, I don't want to, shift from this, believing Mizzou could be a playoff team to just becoming a hater. But, man, without Brady Cook, I'm not sure you can pick up more than 1 victory with these 4 matchups.
Yeah, that's where I am, and I was a hater on Mizzou all season long. I just don't see how you win without Brady Cook. And I don't think Brady Cook's a top 10 college quarterback that can really lift up a bad team around him and get you to the promised land. He's the perfect game manager, though, for an offense. And without him, I mean, you saw it this weekend. They just can't function. And they're not going to be able to establish the run. I don't think they can just rely on that for these games. It's going to be hard just to get the ball to Luther Burden in space and just see what he can do. I think maybe they can win 1 game, and that's me being all bright and sunny and happy on a Monday. I just don't see it. I think 1 game is at best the minimum they're winning the rest of the way if he's out.
I don't think you're winning either of those games on the road. I don't think you're going to be able to pick up a victory on the road. So really it comes down to, do you think you're better than Oklahoma or Arkansas?
I think they can beat Mississippi State. That team stinks. They're the 1 game that I circle that they can probably win. But they're not beating Arkansas because they're feisty. South Carolina's feisty. Oklahoma I don't think is very good, but they'll be able to beat you if you don't have Brady Cook.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know how they score. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, with Drew Pine in,
and not turn it over.
That's the thing. You're going to give them too many short fields to where they're going to be able to score despite their lack of offense. I think it's 1. 1 would be the game that Mississippi State game that T-Bone referenced, and it's on the road, so it's not going to be a gimme. That's the one that I would say they have a chance in if Brady Cook is out the rest of this season. I think the turnovers are the biggest thing. Over the last 2 years, Brady Cook has thrown 28 touchdowns and has thrown just 7 interceptions. He gives you a chance, man. This year, he has 1 interception on the season. There are plenty of things that you can critique Brady Cook for, and almost all of them are fair this season. He has not been the same guy that he was a year ago, especially with the deep ball. He's averaging just 7 yards per attempt, which is fine, but it's the definition of fine. Last year, he was closer to 9.5 yards per attempt because of some of those deep balls that he was able to connect on. They don't have that part of their offense with the deep ball because Drew Pine has no arm whatsoever. It's a noodle arm. And you're throwing it to the other team. Well, you get no benefit of throwing the football. Now you're just exclusively a running team. I don't know what Nate Noel's status looks like long term. They ruled him out pretty quickly last week, which doesn't speak highly of his potential availability. You're just not in a good spot. You're not in a good spot if you are without Brady Cook for any extended stretch. My hope is they can get him back. I think maybe he misses the Oklahoma game, possibly the South Carolina game, and then plays the final 2 weeks to finish out his career at Mizzou and at least gets a senior day against Arkansas. And if he does, you could potentially win both of those games. Finish out the season with 8. Maybe you find a way to get to 9 wins. You salvage what's been a really disappointing year, but that's it, man. There's nothing more than that. And this gets to one of the other pieces of the conversation that I think is worth having. There would have been a point in time earlier this year where I said, okay, you've got your backup quarterback in, just get the ball to Luther Burden. You'll find a way. You could potentially at least manufacture some yards by getting it to Luther Burden. I'm not sure I feel that way anymore. There was a piece put up earlier today from ESPN.com on the top prospects in the NFL draft this year for the upcoming draft 2025. Will Johnson, corner out of Michigan. T-Bone, you saw him last week. Really good football player. He's the number 1 player on their list. Number 2 is Luther Burden. Let me read this for you, Alex. Burden has evolved from a gadget player into a fully developed wide receiver over the past 3 seasons. With more strength and a better grasp of the route tree, Burden is often the focal point of opposing defenses. That's why his numbers this season are down compared to his breakout 2023 campaign. But the explosiveness, the power at the catch point, and the electric ability that he brings as a receiver, runner, and punt returner are enticing. In an offense that leans on pre-snap motion and allows him to operate in space, Burden would be an early star. First of all, you can't have him as your punt returner. He shouldn't even be the punt returner at Mizzou right now. He can't return punts. He can't catch them cleanly. It's happened over each of the last 2 weeks. He got lucky this week that they called kick-catch interference, but he muffed that one. Muffed one against A&M, I believe it was. You can't be a punt returner in the NFL. It shouldn't be in the college level. Second of all, I do think some of the defensive, taking him away out of the game plan, their focus on him, that's true. That's happened. Some of it is the quarterback play hasn't been good. Some of it is Luther Burden just hasn't been the same guy as he was a year ago. Mm-hmm. I would not take him, much less a top 2 selection in next year's draft. I'm not sure I would spend a first-round pick on Luther Burden. I like him. Last year he was amazing. But there's been some regression in his game this year, and some of the body language stuff, it just hasn't been good. And if you're going to be drafting in the top 10 especially, you're not going to be in a good situation. That's why you're selecting in the top 10. I would have real hesitation right now if I'm an NFL team about taking him that high based on what we've seen from him this year.
Yeah, you said the body language, and that's where I'm at. I mean, you're seeing the true colors of Luther Burden because when things are bad for the team, this is the guy that's either trying to start the brawl on the sidelines where we've seen him get kicked out of the game, or you don't have an engaged receiver like you do at the beginning of the game if things go south. I'm amazed that they had him that high up because, man, like you think of some of the guys in college football right now, it feels like Luther Burden's stock should be dropping because of this season. This might be a terrible comp by me, but it's starting to give off a little Tavon Austin vibes. Like type of player.
I think he's bigger and stronger than Tavon was. I just think they kind of win a little differently. I don't really know what the comparison is, though. And that's part of the problem is he's not a really big guy. He's more like 6 foot, 200 pounds. I think he's going to be a good player. I just don't know that he has that elite top-end ability that we thought coming into the season compared to his peers. I don't know that there is a wide receiver that I've seen this year that gives me that kind of... there's nobody in this class that reminds me of last year, what we saw from Marvin Harrison Jr. or Rome Odunze.
Or Neighbors.
Or Neighbors.
Roberts Jr.
Those guys were amazing. I don't think I see that in anybody, at least that I've watched so far this season, personally. Other than the freshman kid at Ohio State and Ryan Williams at Alabama, those guys I would draft in the top 10.
Yeah.
But they're not eligible for another couple of years. And Burden, I wouldn't. Burden doesn't compare to those guys that I just mentioned.
Burden feels like one of those guys that you draft, and then you're like, what do we do with him?
Yeah.
You're spending the pick like he's supposed to be a difference maker, because if you're using a first-round pick and specifically a high one like they're considering him, you look at that and you say, now what are we supposed to do with it?
He's probably a guy that is probably, a 2 in the NFL?
Yeah.
That's probably where he's trending towards. And
I think he can be a good player.
Yeah, I agree.
Just not a top 10 pick.
I just don't know if he's that number 1 in a top 10 pick, because, like, looking at Mizzou right now, he's a good player. I know that, like, if I'm going into a game as a coach, I know he's a good player. I don't know if he's a guy that he, like, necessarily scares me.
The other thing is, if he is a number 2 as a wide receiver, you do have some concern, in my opinion, about, is he going to accept that role? Yeah. Because we've seen this year when he doesn't get the ball, and there are times where he should be getting the ball and he's not. Mm-hmm. So let's put that out there. But when he's not getting the ball, sometimes he like clams up, and the body language is really bad at times. And there was the game earlier this year, was it against Boston College, I believe it was, where he should have been thrown out. He was lucky that he wasn't, because he snapped the mouth guard off of the opposing player and threw it. Like, he's just... There have been moments this year where you can see this is really getting to him. The lack of success this season, and I'll be curious to see what that looks like the rest of the way. I don't think he's going to opt out or anything like that, but I will be curious to see what the level of involvement looks like for him, what the effort looks like for him, because he could be a big part of what they're trying to do down the stretch. I just don't know. I don't know, man.
It's just a weird turn, because we're getting a lot of pushback because we're super negative, saying he doesn't have his quarterback. But, guys, that was 2 games that they didn't have his quarterback. He had his quarterback all season, and we've been asking for more from Luther Burden. The reason that the stock is declining is you look at last year.
Did you watch Ohio State last year? Because Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't have a quarterback.
Right.
True.
The stock is declining because he had his same quarterback last year, and he was great last season. He looked like a guy that should have been ranked where he was. Yeah. Same quarterback at the beginning of the season, and the offense was non-existent, not just because of Brady Cook. Luther Burden wasn't creating that offense either.
And I understand that he's going to get more, people are going to game plan for him a little bit more, like it said in that quote that you read from the piece. Guys, he should be the leading receiver on Mizzou. I do not care if you're as good of a player as we've been talking about Luther Burden. Guys, he's second on the team in reception yards, and it's by 32 yards, and he actually has more receptions than Theo Weiss. He should lead the team in receiving yards because he's we thought he was that much of a difference maker.
And I want to be clear here. I think that Luther Burden is a good player, and I would probably take him in the second round. But there's enough questions about how his game translates to the NFL level at an elite level that I would have really, really serious questions about taking him in the first. You know, that would be the way that I would be viewing it. So this is not me saying that Luther Burden's not a good player. He is. He's an excellent player. And for Mizzou, he's going to go down as one of the best receivers that they've had in program history. All of that is absolutely the case. And last year, what we saw from him, that player, if he had never stepped onto the field this year, first-round pick. But he has stepped onto the field this year. And we've seen what it looks like as defenses have adjusted to him. You think defenses aren't going to adjust to him at the NFL level? You bet your ass they will. And you think it's going to be easy for him as he tries to transition to that level? No, it's going to be hard, man. And if you have this kind of body language at that level, dude, they will eat you up and chew you up and spit you out. So there are just questions that have emerged this season that I didn't anticipate having. And because of those, I would probably take him more in the second round than I would the first.
It's just funny, too, because people are saying that he hasn't had a quarterback all season, and that's why his numbers don't look great. Man, what do you think that team's going to look like when they do have a quarterback that drafts them second, third, fourth overall? Because it's going to be in the same spot. Now, I know NFL quarterback's different than college football quarterback, but
NFL defense is also different.
Right. And if you can't get it in line like you had last season, what do you think it's going to look like at that next level?
I just thought he would be a guy that was able to overcome whatever the situation is around him because of how talented he is. And that hasn't been the case this year. When you have situations like that, it opens up some legitimate questions about him. All right, he's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK in 15 minutes. The first decision that the Cardinals have to make this offseason is blank. We'll fill in that blank for you coming up in 15 minutes. But next, in or out here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this, Alex. In or out? Illinois will end up in a better bowl game this year than Missouri.
In. I think they're going to have a better record at the end of the season than Missouri, and they've already got more top 25 wins than Missouri, so in.
I do too.
I'm in as well. I mean, I could care less about that bowl game, and I probably won't watch it, but I bet they'll have a higher one.
Can I give you a different one since that one was really quick?
This might be Pop-Tart.
In or out? Travis Hunter will win the Heisman.
In.
Travis Hunter, for those not familiar, the wide receiver / cornerback for Colorado. CU is actually good. Credit where it is due. That is a good football team, man.
And a lot of it's because of that guy.
He played 132 snaps on Saturday against Cincinnati. He was out for one play.
I don't know how they can justify anybody winning it over him. Colorado's good. This guy plays on both sides of the field and in both impactful situations and having success at it. So,
Cam Ward is going to have something to say about it. The quarterback at Miami, second in the country in passing yards so far this year. Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back, has run for 1,400 yards.
Feinberg, you playing two positions?
No, but he's leading a team that's probably going to make it to the college football playoff, and he is putting up Barry Sanders-esque rushing yards.
Yeah, I think he's the one that wins it, so I'm out on this. I get what you're saying of Travis Hunter playing both sides of the ball. I think Jinty's just going to have unbelievable numbers. It's going to be hard to deny. And Hunter's missed, one game, if I'm not mistaken? Or he left part of a game. I can't remember which one it was.
I think he missed the next one as well.
Yeah, so he's not going to have the full season behind his back. And I think Jeanty right now, I mean, his numbers, they're only going to get better because he plays in a weaker conference. I think he's going to be the one that ends up winning the Heisman.
Alex?
Guys, in or out, Philip Broberg surpasses 60 points this season for the Blues.
We just keep upping the number.
Yeah, I know. JR had this he did a mailbag earlier today on The Athletic, and somebody brought this up.
60 points, man, that's just such a high number. I'll say out. I think he ends up in the 50s, though, as of today.
The last Blues defenseman to put up 60 points, because I don't think Alex Pietrangelo did that.
I can look it up.
No, he got 54 points. So you're talking pre-Alex Pietrangelo. You're probably talking Chris Pronger, the last Blues defenseman.
Put up 60?
Yeah, Pronger won the MVP, I think.
Or, whatever it was called.
Yeah, he put up 62.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was the year that he won the Norris and the MVP.
How many goals he scored in that year?
He scored 14. Oh, okay. That was the most he scored in his NHL career.
48 assists that year. Yep. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Stop comparing people to him, please.
Well, you might have him, man. That's where we're going to cut it off at Pronger. But we said Victor Hedman, said all these other, but we're going to cut it off at Pronger.
If a defenseman won an MVP, he's off the table.
Yeah, no other defenseman has done that. No defenseman has done that since Pronger. It's wild.
He's off the table.
I'll say out. I'll say he gets to about 45, 50. I think he's going to cool down at some point, and that will really slow down what we see as end season results be.
T-Bone?
Guys, in or out? Zach Bolduc will spend the entire season with the NHL club.
He damn well better.
Yeah, I in.
Boy, that was the angriest I've heard BK in a while about it.
I'm annoyed by this.
Bolduc. He's like, Bolduc.
Great interview. One of our friends.
True.
Agreed. He looks the part. You watch him in these games, and he doesn't look overmatched. He's going to make silly mistakes. You look back at it, and you're like, man, that's a mistake you hope he doesn't make again. And so far, see if this continues, he hasn't really made the same mistake multiple times. He's more physical than I expected him to be. He is tougher on the puck. Like, this is a guy that you want to build around. I don't know that he's ever going to be a top line forward. Middle six, though.
He was never supposed to be a top line forward.
Middle six forward, you feel good about it.
Yeah. You need to stop moving guys in and out. Like, you know what Kapanen is. You know what Walker is. They're extra players for you. You set Bolduc and you forget it with Bolduc. I've liked his game. There are there are other roster decisions that you can make that do not impact this club as much as it would if you send Zach Bolduc down. So in.
And not only, by the way, should he be on the team, he should be in the lineup every night.
100%.
Every single night. Yep. By the way, to answer your question, Alex, when was the last time that a Blues defenseman had 60-plus points in a season? Al McInnes in 2003 was the last time that happened. He had 68 points that year and was a plus 22 on the ice. Before that, Pronger. McInnes did it 2 other times in his Blues career. And before that, Jeff Brown, 1992 and 93, back-to-back seasons with 60-plus points.
And Al McInnes and Chris Pronger just casually went out there and played 27 minutes a night.
Not too bad. Not too bad. All right.
It's cool. So we got Al McInnes.
399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. Guys, in or out, the Blues play better team offense without Robert Thomas in the lineup.
Well, I wasn't that impressed over the weekend, so out.
I mean, I'm going to say out because... No, you know what? I'm going to say in. When you lose a player like that, you have to simplify it. They did it against Toronto. To be very apparent, I didn't see the game on Saturday because I was at a wedding. Grant had the coverage of it, but I've watched the highlights. Some of the mistakes that were made wasn't because this team's playing individual hockey. It's just you were trying to be a little too aggressive, and it resulted in odd man rushes the other way. I'm going to say in. You simplify when you don't have your best player. Right now, their biggest issues are faceoffs. You got to start winning more faceoffs without Thomas.
I will say this, though I do think out. I do think they are a better offensive team with Robert Thomas on the ice. It does feel like things are gelling a little easier than I was expecting. And what
I've been impressed by Holloway at center.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is it doesn't feel like now you're just still moving pieces around, because what were they moving the pieces around for? Well, they're trying to figure out who worked with Thomas. Feels like everybody's working a little bit better now that Thomas isn't in the
line,
lineup.
at least off of natural stat trick, the line that didn't generate the most offense was Neighbors, Shen, and Saad. And we've been saying for a long time that that's the line combination that doesn't make sense. Texier, Buch, Kyrou looks like a line that you can go off of. Your fourth line was pretty good, and Fox's Sundqvist, Toropchenko.
I don't know what the numbers were, but Holloway's line I thought was the best line.
Yeah, a Corsi rating, they had an incredible Corsi rating with 75%. Scoring chances had them at 4-0 and 3-0 high danger. So that line works.
By the way,
it's Shen, Saad, and Neighbors.
We've talked so much about so many different players, in or out. Matthew Joseph is getting underrated in terms of the offseason acquisition.
If I had to list the impactful players from top to bottom, Joseph would be number 2. It would be Broberg number 1, Joseph at number 2, and then we can talk Holloway and Suter. Joseph,
what an offseason.
Joseph does things that do not show up on paper. And like Joseph's actually putting up some points for you right now. He's got 2 goals and 2 assists through 9 games.
Nothing about his numbers, though, on the stat sheet are going to jump out at you. But when you watch the games, dude has been huge for them.
You don't watch the games. He's breaking up plays on both ends of the ice that I have not seen for this team since Ivan Barbashev. When you're talking about that level of a player, third, fourth line guy, when you're talking about impacting both offense and defense, yeah.
He does the dirty work.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that guys just don't want to do, goes out there and does it and takes care of it. So you don't need Dylan Holloway, for example, who's going out there to play center to do it as much. It's been really impressive. All right, last one here. In or out, Scott Perunovich will be waived or traded by the Blues within the next couple of weeks.
In. I don't know if he gets claimed. I don't know if there's any trade value for it right now. Your hope, if you're the Blues, if you decide to go this path, which we'll get into a little bit later, but your hope is he clears waivers and he can go to the AHL and have a great end of the season, and then by the trade deadline, you trade him for some other minor league player to put in your system. But it is very clear he doesn't fit into your game plan moving forward.
He shouldn't play another game.
No.
For the Blues.
Yeah. No. Frankly, I think it's a little ridiculous that he played over Matt Kessel in that Montreal
Multiple
game.
times.
Yeah. One game, you know what? Fine. Maybe Kessel hasn't had the greatest outcome. You put him in there versus Toronto. Fine. You played him like 9 minutes versus Toronto. You were playing with 5 defensemen. Kessel should have been in that lineup against Montreal.
It's baffling. I don't understand that one at all. It doesn't make sense. All right, coming up next. The first decision that the Cardinals have to make this offseason is blank. We'll fill in the blank for you coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care. If you're in the market for an HVAC system or an HVAC company that's taking care of your old unit, then it's time to call Classic Air Care. You hear me talk about them all the time, whether it's purchasing a new one, keeping yours running for the longevity of you being in your home. I've had them since 2016. They've taken care of these old units, and it's because I'm a part of their maintenance agreement. And what that is, twice a year before you flip on the AC for permanently through the spring, through the summer, before you flip on that heater through the fall and winter, they come out, they check it out for you, they fine-tune it. It's that maintenance tune-up, but this is the best part. If there's any issues in between those two visits in the year, you are at the top of the priority list when you need them to come out and fix your unit. So it's a great thing to be a part of. It's kept both of my 20-plus-year-old units alive for the long time, and that's because Classic Air Care, the knowledgeable technicians, the great customer service that they provide, sign up for that maintenance agreement. You can do so on their website at classicaircare.com, or you can call and schedule today. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Get with the company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. It's Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tomorrow night as they visit the Ottawa Senators. Well, pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Then puck drop at 6 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, Monday Night Football for you as well. Pregame coverage starting at 6:30 as the Steelers take on the New York Giants. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So the first decision that the Cardinals need to make this offseason is blank. According to Ben Frederickson, it's what they want to do with Nolan Arenado. I think he wrote a really good piece over in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch earlier today, Alex. And he basically says, hey, listen, these two sides need to come together and have an honest conversation. The Cardinals need to be honest about what their plan is. The Cardinals need to also be honest about, hey, you haven't really fit into our plan the way that we hoped over the last couple of seasons. And Nolan needs to also be honest and say, well, you didn't build a team around me.
Oh, good. That's a great start to
to
the relationship.
And then they can come to a decision on what the best plan is moving forward. Alex, I agree with him. I think that's where this offseason begins. But the hard part is, even if they come out of that meeting saying to themselves, you know what, it's best for both of us to go our separate ways, Arenado holds all of the leverage because he still has a no-trade clause. And it's the same reason why the Cardinals didn't have to give up much to acquire Nolan Arenado when they traded for him, and why they got $50 million in that deal. It's because Nolan can say, I want to go to one of these two teams, for example, Dodgers maybe, I don't know who else even would be in the mix. And the Cardinals then can only negotiate with those two teams, which means there's a lack of a bidding war. And maybe only one of them is interested in Nolan Arenado. Possibly neither of them is interested in Nolan Arenado at his current cost. And then you have to talk about the money that's included to shed some of the salary for him. So, Alex, when you think about the possibility, because I think we all agree that's the first thing they need to do, right? Mm-hmm. Is figure out what the plan is with Nolan Arenado. How do you go about this? Are you trying to maximize return and you're including money in it? Like, what do you think the Cardinals should do here?
No, I think if the best approach to this is just to find a way to get off of the most money possible. Because if you and Arenado are parting ways and don't believe that this relationship is working out for the best, then you need to find the team that's willing to bring in Nolan Arenado and find out how much money they're willing to take on. And I know it's a strange question to ask because they're probably going to be like, well, we'd like to take on nothing. Cool, well, you're going to pay more. How much do you want to give up for Nolan Arenado? Because if you're the Cardinals, you've just got to get out of as much money as possible so that you have the flexibility to do other things with your roster. I don't think there should be any want for a return from a Cardinals fan. Like, this was an experiment that did not work out for you. And now you just have to cut ties and be done with it. And for that, you don't get anything back. Maybe you can get a lottery player that's not even an A-ball yet. You know, you get a international player that comes in and maybe makes a rising through the rankings. But for right now, if I'm the Cardinals, how do I get rid of the most money possible?
Yeah, I think you're just trying to cut money at that point in the deal with Nolan Arenado, because I just don't know if you're going to get a return for him. I think the only way you're able to move on from him, if you're able to move on from him at all, is to make him a very affordable, underpaid, quote-unquote, third baseman, because he probably should be more in the kind of Matt Chapman range at this point in his career, to where he's still got an okay bat. He's more of a singles hitter than he is a home run guy now, and he still provides pretty good Gold Glove defense. So that means you probably got to eat about $10 million on that contract if that's the case, because I think Chapman's like around 25. Yeah. So you probably got to get him a little bit below that mark. Then I'm willing to trade him. And if that means I don't get as good a return, or if I eat maybe even more money to try and get a better return, I don't really care. I think the focus is just, okay, can we get out of the Arenado deal? Not so much on what the return is.
I agree with that. I also think there's just a lack of options in terms of where you're going to send him. I think Houston would be a team that makes a lot of sense for both sides. If they decide not to bring back Bregman, they're going to have an opening at third base. I don't know how much money they'd be willing to take on, though. That is a very analytically minded organization with the way that they approach things. Are they just going to go out there and say, yeah, mid-30s third baseman with no power, that makes a lot of sense for us at $35 million a year? I'm not sure that is going to be the case. A team like maybe the New York Mets could make some sense. They don't really have a long-term option at third base. I do have one other question for you guys. Would you trade him to the Cubs?
Sure. Yeah. If the Cubs are willing to take on money, absolutely.
Because they've got Isaac Paredes as their third baseman right now. I don't know what their plan is there. It felt like that was kind of one of those, hey, let's try this, see how it goes. It's entirely possible they decide to flip him in the offseason for somebody else. You're willing to trade him in the division to the Cubs?
I could care less if he goes to the Cubs and tears you up. Like, this isn't even about next year. This is about 3 to 5 years from now. And 3 to 5 years from now, Nolan Arenado is not even a part of the equation. So I'd rather expedite it and start this faster. You can go play for the Cubs all you want. Heck, you can go play for the Cincinnati Reds or the Milwaukee Brewers. Right now, it seems it's best to be off of the roster for Nolan Arenado and for the Cardinals.
Yeah, now that you're in this rebuild, refresh, whatever the hell you want to call it,
refresh.
I don't care where he's going. If I'm being totally honest, I'm not scared that he's going to hurt you in the division. I don't know if he's a guy that I fear anymore.
Because you know it's going to happen?
No, it's because I don't know if Arenado's the same. I know Arenado's not the same guy as he was, and I don't think he's getting back to it. That's just my honest opinion. That's why I find it hard that they're going to be able to trade this contract at all, no matter how much they're eating on it. If the Cubs want to take him and you only have to eat a couple $1 million on that, sure, go play for Chicago. I don't think he's going to come back to haunt you.
I would do it. But, man, I know what this is going to be like.
It's not going to be Lou Brock 2.0 the other side.
No. But if he goes on to have some amount of success next year in Chicago, man, we're never going to hear the end of it. And you know that.
But
our texters know.
You have to. I mean, it's going to happen the same thing with Paul Goldschmidt. And I understand it's a different scenario because you're not trading him. You're just not bringing him back. But Paul Goldschmidt, I have full expectation he's going to go and have one incredible year with whatever team it is. And you're going to be like, see, the Cardinals don't know how to develop.
I think the only two realistic options, to me at least, are Houston and the Dodgers. And I don't know if the Dodgers would be interested or not. I'm guessing they would probably want you to eat some of the salary to make that deal work. Houston feels like the team that is most likely, because of their place of desperation, it's a shorter term contract than what they would have to give to Bregman. So maybe they could talk themselves into it. He also fits their ballpark. They've got those seats that are the short porch. Like, it fits him really well to potentially play there. And they're still in a win now mode currently. So him being 33 years old isn't the end of the world for them. I could see that being the most likely landing spot. And to me, that's the first decision you have to make. What's the plan with Nolan Arenado? Is he going to be around here long term? To me, I agree with you guys. I would not keep him around. I think it makes more sense for your roster to not have him here. But then it gets down to, okay, talk to ownership. What's the plan there? How much money are we talking about? Are we willing to eat money on this deal? Where are we willing to trade him? What is he willing to do? All of those things come into play. Alex, if you were told by ownership that you have to remove $40+ million from the payroll going into next year, are there guys that you immediately look to and say, this is where I'm starting?
Other than Nolan Arenado?
Let's say
we just discussed that.
Let's say you can't do that.
Okay. Then
it's off the table. Teams won't take him on. You can end up actually shedding a whole lot of payroll accordingly. And he only wants to go to the Dodgers, and they're not interested in him. So Nolan Arenado's back next year. Now what?
I go to Sonny Gray. I start at Sonny Gray, and I say, where do you want to go? And get rid of that $25 million. And then from there, we've talked about Ryan Helsley. That's the other person that you're going to try and take off your books. Honestly, I think where I'm locating, if I'm going $40 million, is my pitching side of things. I'm going to Sonny Gray. I'm going to Steven Matz. I'm going to Eric Fetty. I'm going to Ryan Helsley. I'm looking at that bullpen. Where can I cut costs? I know a lot of people are going to say Miles Michaelis. At some point, you're going to have guys that can eat innings. So at least like for me, if I can move off of Sonny Gray, Miles Michaelis and Kyle Gibson are just on this roster. But if we're talking 40+, Sonny Gray, Ryan Helsley, Lance Lynn, although I don't expect them to pick up that option, Steven Matz, those are guys that I'm cutting costs with.
Yeah, I start with Sonny Gray, and I think the four guys I'm going to maybe eat a little bit of money on one of these deals, but these four names I'm about to throw out will save about $59 million in payroll. Sonny Gray, I think you can still trade him and get a pretty good return for him. Now, granted, he does control a little bit of his destiny with his no trade, so that will hurt the return.
Thankfully for him, the teams that he will be interested in are potentially teams that would be interested in him. So there's some reciprocation there. Like Atlanta could be interested in him to replace Max Fried.
Cincinnati might want him.
Really needs a starting pitcher again this offseason. So the teams that were also in the bidding last year still make sense for Sonny Gray.
I then would look at Eric Fetty. Fetty is going to be traded, in my opinion. I think somebody will take his $7.5 million. He's a perfect number 3 for a contender. I then look at Ryan Helsley. Helsley and his anywhere between like $8 to $10 million in arbitration. Boom, you're going to get a really good return for him because he's an elite closer. And then I'm looking at Contreras as well. I think Contreras is the one that he's the tough one to read because nobody really had a market for him in free agency. I think his bat plays, man. And I think teams will look at him and say, Maybe they don't want the full $18 million. Maybe he's the one where you eat a couple $1 million on it. Maybe you make him like a $14, $15 million guy. Someone takes him on, whether it be as a catcher, DH. Hell, they can put him in the outfield for all I care. I still think you can get a pretty good return on him. And there, boom, right there. Those 4 guys just cut $59 million in payroll. And if you needed another arm in your rotation, because you would have Michaelis, Matz, Palante, and McGreevy in that case, and I don't know if there's anybody I'm forgetting in that.
Sign Walker Buehler.
You
said
can
you forgot Gibson.
either do Buehler, do one of those 1-year deals, or hell, you can bring back Kyle Gibson and pick up his option for $10 million.
I wouldn't do Wilson Contreras. If I'm stuck with Nolan Arenado and can't move off of that, I'm going to have to keep somebody who has a little bit more of a positive mindset with a team that's about to go through this youth movement. I think that's at least a guy who can keep things light and, if healthy, can provide still the ability to win games. And, man, if you lose all of those guys and go young, you're going to go through a longer refresh than they're making this out to be.
To me, if you're in this refresh, you've got to play the kids. And if that's the case, Contreras has no role on this team.
Put him in DH.
You've got to play Herrera. You've got to play Paz. You've got to figure out what you have at the catcher position that's not named Wilson Contreras.
That's what I was going to say. A lot of what I would do here depends on where I need young guys to play. So one of the main reasons why I'm interested in trading Nolan Arenado is not just the money, not just his lack of performance. It's also
Gorman.
I think Gorman profiles better as a third baseman long term. I think you could play one of the other young kids. Like maybe it ends up being Thomas Ajisi that bumps over to third base, and Gorman is just your everyday third baseman. Donovan now plays at second base, and let's see what this looks like. That's entirely possible as well. You have options that can answer that position for you. Contreras, it's the same thing. If he's going to be on the roster next year as your seemingly every 2 out of every 3 games starting catcher, okay, well, Pajes is probably your backup because they've shown they like him better than Ivan Herrera. I want to see Herrera playing almost every day for this team next year. So what is his role? Is he a DH now for you? If you have Arenado back, well, that means that Gorman's probably my everyday DH. Now there's no spot for Ivan Herrera, and I need him. I need to find out answers on what Herrera is at this point in his major league career. So I think you have to trade one of Contreras or Arenado just to open that spot in your lineup on a day-in, day-out basis, even though I don't think it would be a fun experience to trade Wilson Contreras. It sucks. If this is the end of the Wilson Contreras experience here in St. Louis, man, he was everything you asked him to be, and the Cardinals did him wrong, not the other way around. And normally it's been the free agent acquisitions that have gone bad for the Cardinals. This will be the Cardinals doing it wrong by the player for the first time really in a while. Coming up next, let's dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, Alex went to a wedding over the weekend, which means it is time for a junk drawer story for him. Alex, what do you got for us today?
Surprisingly, I wasn't as miserable as I make it seem. It was a family wedding, so it was fun, but it was more fun watching my daughters run around the dance floor. But I had one of those moments, like I typically do in the junk drawer, of what would you do as a parent in this situation.
Okay.
So, of course, my daughter's 3 and 2 years old. They were flower girls. And there was another couple related to the other side of the family, I believe. They had a little boy who was about 7 or 8 years old. He was a ring bearer. So we were at dinner, and my daughters, this is like 8 o'clock at night, and they're running around chaotically. They're having fun.
Sure.
And the little boy looked at my oldest daughter and said, "You need to stop. You're being a stupid little girl."
Okay. How old is he?
8.
Okay.
My inner dad kicked in, and I looked at my wife, and I think she realized what I was about to do, because I was about to say something to an 8-year-old. Well, not to the 8-year-old boy, but to his parents, because they were sitting right there.
I mean,
I get it, but don't call my daughter stupid.
Your kids have probably done something similar.
My daughter doesn't call people stupid. She knows that that's a bad word.
Okay.
She pushes people.
There you go.
But then this is where it got even more, and I'm really curious what another parent would do.
Sure.
So we were at the actual wedding reception. They do their flower girl thing. They come over. They sit next to mommy and daddy. And as a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old is, it's hard to keep them quiet throughout a wedding.
Sure.
So we were trying to keep them entertained, and so my daughter was talking, and she's got a loud voice like her dad. And so we were trying to get her.
Wonder where she gets it from.
We were trying to get her to hush and whisper during the service, and she did a great job as long as she could. But finally,
this is during the ceremony.
This is during the actual ceremony. It was a Catholic wedding, so those are like an hour long. And so probably about 35 minutes in, my daughter started to get really fidgety, and so I was about to walk her out, and the mom of the boy turned and looked at Katie and I, and goes, "Don't you think it's time for you to take your kid and leave?"
Okay, well, never mind. Now, so the kid said that to your daughter.
That was at the reception. That was the rehearsal. That was the rehearsal the night before.
Oh, okay.
And then this was at the reception the next day. So Daddy's already, his anger fuel tank is already at peak level. But when she turned around and looked at Katie and I and said that,
that I feel differently about. The kid one, man, kids say weird stuff. They say funny. He probably thought he was being funny.
Right.
And
I think it's more how do you handle that as a parent, because you want to make sure that that's not okay, but you also don't want to be a what.
I think with the kid thing, you just let it slide.
Yeah.
And you just move on. You probably is it somebody that you guys are related to?
No, so it was on the other family.
Probably never see him again.
And we told our daughter oh, don't listen, that's not a nice word, blah, blah, blah.
You're good. I think you have a conversation with your kid. You don't say anything to the other kid. This is my own personal way to approach this. Everybody's got a different way to approach it, right? The mom thing, that would have set me off.
Yeah.
That would have set me off.
And I kept the tone fairly level, because I looked at her, and my bug eyes, I'm this Italian thing where my eyes say what I'm thinking, not my mouth. So she saw what my eyes were saying, and it started with an F and ended with U. But I looked at her and I said, "Yeah, we'll decide when it's time to take her out. She's done a great job so far." And then she just and turned around and faced the other way. Oh, that started the wedding off pretty on a sour note.
Yeah, that one I don't know that I would have handled well.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase. I would not have handled that situation.
Yeah. And it's tough because you're in the middle of the wedding, and so it's you're sitting there, you're trying to be quiet, you're trying to get the kid being quiet, and I was going to walk her out, but then it was
now it's the principle of it, right? I'm not doing this because you said that I should do this. I'm doing this because I also recognized, yes, of course, my kid is being rambunctious. She is 3.
And we're at an hour
Catholic wedding where they do an entire mass. It's going to be a whole thing. We were trying to see if she could maybe get settled in, and it didn't work, so I'm going to go ahead and take her to the back. We'll be fine. We'll let you guys do your thing. We went to a wedding recently, Alex, similar Catholic ceremony, so, it was an hour-ish, roughly, for the entire thing. One of the couples that was in the wedding, they had 2 kids. They were kind of off to the side, and they were playing, running around, doing whatever, right? And you just, as a parent, you look over, you're like, man, they're just having the time of their life,
kids.
Whatever. They're being kids. I would imagine there were probably some there that don't have kids that are like, can you?
Yeah.
But she has a kid.
Right. Somebody texted in and said, "Doesn't Alex's daughter assault people? Have her beat her up." No, that was her younger sister. And she does her own thing. At some point, she's going to be able to sick her youngest sister on another one because her sister does like to beat people up. But it was one of those things that Katie and I were like, maybe we're just in the early stages of being parents and we don't know how to handle these situations since that was our oldest and, she's 3. But man, it's like, this is why I don't like people sometimes because it's kind of rude.
How was the wedding? Did you dance?
The wedding was great. Yeah, we danced. It's really fun watching a 3 and a 2-year-old enjoy a wedding because they just ran around the dance floor and they were jumping up and down. They were standing in front of the stage. It was a live band and they were jumping up and down, rocking out. When we left, it was probably 8:30. They were exhausted. So that was a lot of fun. Katie and I got to just sit back and enjoy ourselves because grandma and grandpa, aunts and uncles
nice.
taking care of them. So we actually got to enjoy it, which was fun. But
how many what is it, the Pink Whitneys? How many of those?
No, I didn't do Pink Whitneys. I do whiskey and Cokes at weddings.
Really?
I'm a little bit more professional. Yeah, I did about 4 of them. They were good, man.
You do whiskey and Coke at a wedding?
I love whiskey and Cokes.
I'm a gin and soda guy at a wedding.
Yeah.
Less sugar.
Yeah, I get that, I guess.
You get to the end of the night and you're like, oh.
Nah, you feel good about that for a while.
T-Bone,
but yeah,
what's
whiskey
your
and Cokes.
Drink of choice at a wedding.
Whiskey and Coke's mine, too.
Is it?
I love whiskey and Coke, man.
Yeah.
That's really good.
We did the old fashions at our wedding.
Yeah.
And we had if you went to Mizzou, they have big cups. It's kind of the thing, right? The plastic 22-ounce cups at any of the bars that you go to. We decided to use those for our weddings. That way there wasn't glass everywhere.
Smart.
What we didn't realize is that they were going to pour the entire thing. So the cups were that
Dude,
full.
This guy,
with the old fashions.
Katie walked over. She was standing there with me when we were getting drinks. And I told the guy, I said, can I get a whiskey and Coke? He put the glass down. The whiskey was up to here.
Yeah.
I looked at Katie and I go, it's going to be a long night.
And you had how many?
4.
There you go. And did the kids stay with you guys that night or did they go home with grandma and grandpa?
No, they stayed with us.
Good on you, dude.
Yeah,
Good
they stayed
on
with
you.
us. They were great too, man. For a wedding with a 3 and a 2-year-old that went from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon until about 9 o'clock at night, man. I couldn't have asked for a better evening with those girls. They did incredible.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Jameson and ginger ale at a wedding is my go-to. I feel like everybody has a specific wedding go-to. Because I don't really drink. I'll drink gin and soda occasionally, but it's not my go-to drink by any stretch. It's a specific wedding thing, and I don't know why that is. But when I go to weddings, I've got to drink this. I don't know if that's just for me. But
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Frank Sinatra's drink was a whiskey and Coke or something like that.
That's why you're doing it?
And I think that's why I started doing it when I could drink. Because I love Frank Sinatra, and I'm maybe he does that. I think that's what it was. I got to double check. I watched the documentary about him.
Was that a subliminal thing, or was that I'm overtly going to do this because Frank Sinatra did this?
I think at the time when I was 21, because this was a documentary a while ago, I think at the time you see it and you're like, this is kind of cool.
21.
Yeah, I didn't drink prior to 21.
Of course.
Yeah,
I think at the time I saw it, I'm like, that's kind of cool. I like that was his go-to drink. And then as weddings started happening, it's I'm going to get a whiskey and Coke.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we will reveal our football pick'ems from this week. It started out really well for me. We'll see how it ended. But coming up next, the Blues have to find a way to stop falling behind as early as they are right now. Alex, how do they do that? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. It's time to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is Victory Men's Health. Whether that means weight loss that you've been trying to achieve on your own, you can't do it, you need a little bit of help, they can do that for you, help you out with it at Victory Men's Health. Low testosterone issues, they can help you out with that. Erectile dysfunction, they can help you out with that. If it's something a little different, maybe you want to hear about their vitamin infusions, you want them to tell you a little bit more about their red light therapy programs, they can do that for you at Victory Men's Health. VictoryMen'sHealth.com is the place where you can go to book your first appointment today. When you go over there, it's a super easy process. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them a little bit about yourself, what you've been dealing with, what you'd like to do to help you unlock your inner champion, and tell them that BK sent you to Victory Men's Health. Again, 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. For me, when I went to Victory Men's Health for the first time, walked through the door. First of all, it's a beautiful state-of-the-art building. Walked through the door. They helped me out with a micronutrient lab, found out exactly where I was at on all of my levels, had some serious vitamin deficiencies that they helped me out with, unlocked my inner champion. They can do the same for you. It's Victory Men's Health and VictoryMen'sHealth.com. The Blues have trailed by 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, and 2 goals this year, Alex. Those are the individual games. There have only so far this season been 2 games in which the St. Louis Blues did not trail at any point. Those came against the Islanders when they didn't allow a goal and against the Toronto Maple Leafs. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Alex, they have a problem right now of falling behind. Most of the time, falling behind by multiple goals. That happened on Saturday night against the Montreal Canadiens. They get down 2-0. They do tie it up 2-2, but they're playing so much catch-up hockey right now that it feels as if they almost run out of gas at times by the end of the second or third period. Alex, what's happening? What are you seeing that is a theme, if any, with them falling behind the way that they have been?
For me, they're going too far in the other direction of trying to be aggressive out of the gate. Like that Montreal Canadiens game, I felt like was a perfect example. That first goal that was scored, they got caught being too aggressive in their own zone where they had 4 guys by the goal or below the goal line trying to receive the puck, and then the puck comes out of the zone and you got a 2-on-1 the other way. If I look at the games that the Blues have led in, and I'll take the Vegas Golden Knights game out of this because they led for like 5 minutes and then they were trailing, but the Islanders game, the Toronto Maple Leafs game, they're patient with their approach. They wait for the game to come to them because they know defensively they're good. Offensively, it's just a matter of, hey, we got to wait for our moment because we're not the greatest even strength offensive team. That Toronto Maple Leafs game, I thought, was the perfect example of it because the Blues came out firing. They came out to where they were forechecking, but they weren't trying to be too overly aggressive to where they're putting 5 guys in the offensive zone to try and steal pucks away, and then they get caught chasing the hockey game. So I think this team needs to identify they're really good at being a stingy team. They can eliminate the other team's zone entries and the ability to cycle the puck because they can stand them up at the blue line. What they can't do is try and force the offense to come right away because there's a difference of trying to get the lead early and forcing to get to the lead early because when you're forcing it, that's when you start to get the odd man rushes the other way.
It's interesting because I think this was Matthew DeFranks who had this in his piece this weekend. The Blues have been losing for an average of 28 minutes per game this season. 28 minutes per game, not tied, losing. Yeah. It's the 4th most in the NHL. The 3 teams that are above them in terms of the time that they are losing per game so far this season are combined 5, 17, and 3 on the year. 5, 17, and 3. So in other words, it's you and the worst teams in the league thus far that are in the same range. You're 5-4-0 on the year. If you keep playing this way, you will become one of those other teams.
Totally.
This is just not a sustainable way to win. And yet, they've played pretty decent, man. When you watch the games individually, you leave thinking, I thought they played okay tonight. Most of the time, money puck, they have that deserve to win-o-meter by the end of the game.
Which, of course, is the word of God in this sense. So you have to go off of that.
By the end of most of these games, even on Saturday night, it's like 50-50 proposition. Most of their games are 50-50 in either direction based on the performance that they're putting out there. Not the end numbers, like goals for versus against, but based on the performance on the ice, especially at 5-on-5. They're generally speaking in most of these games one way or the other. It's significantly different than it has been over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, you look at any of those underlying numbers, like, dude, they're a terrible hockey team. There's no way that what they're doing is going to work. So I don't know really how to square that. On one side, they're playing much better when you just look at the bottom line results overall from the season. On the other side, they're losing for 28 minutes on average per night, which means that on average, they're losing for half of the game. And that's a horrible way to go about things. So I watch the team and I leave thinking, pretty decent. I think they're a little above 500 right now. I think they've been better than, honestly, I expected them to be, especially since Robert Thomas has gone out of the lineup. But there's also these other issues that they're dealing with, and I don't know how to fix them.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing in the early portion of the season to know how to come from behind. This can't carry over into November because you become way too exhausted by playing catch-up hockey. It's a good thing to know how to do, like you saw against Montreal, but I also think what you saw against Montreal was you fought so hard to get back into the second that the third period got away from you. I just, right now, this team still feels like they're in the feel-it-out period to where they're off with the 5 guys that are on the ice penalty kill-wise. Like, I think they were pretty decent in that game against Montreal, but overall, their penalty kill has gone back and forth. So they gave up 1 power play goal against Montreal. They just seem to not understand in the offensive zone that when one guy chips in, another one's going to cover for him. it can be a strength of this team, but it's also going to be a weakness at some point. And I think if they could just get back to this mindset like they had against Toronto, to where, hey, offense is going to come, just keep doing what we're doing, rather than the, oh, shoot, we just got down by a goal, now we have to force it. That's when you start to put yourself in odd man rushes the other direction.
Last thing on the Blues, Scott Perunovich played on Saturday once again, was a -1 on the ice, ended up, I thought, not having a great game. He's now played in 2 games. He's a -2 on the ice, does not have a point, played about 12 minutes on average in those 2 games. Alex, I don't say this to be spiteful. I wanted it to work for Scott Perunovich. I was hoping that it would work because he's exactly the kind of player that they could really use. Third pair defenseman, moves the puck well, can be the quarterback on the power play unit. That's a valuable piece to any team. It hasn't worked. And to me, I don't know what Matt Kessel did to lose his job to begin with. I didn't think he should have been removed from the lineup, but whatever. If you want to get him some opportunities, see if it can potentially spark some things, cool. To me, it didn't work, and I think he should be out of the lineup again when they take the ice on Tuesday against Ottawa tomorrow night. And then after that, whenever they do get fully healthy again, I think it's time. I think it's time to make the move. Put him through waivers. If he clears, you put him down to the AHL and whatever. You got the extra defenseman down there. If not, thanks for everything that you did for us, Perunovich. It just didn't work here. And I hope that he goes on to have success elsewhere, but it's not working.
Yeah, right now, it's not so much just on the Blue side, it's Scott Perunovich's side. Like, you just don't have a role in St. Louis right now. I mean, again, you get into the game, you're supposed to be that offensive-minded defenseman. He had 1 shot on goal in that game, in the 2 games that he's played, and it was against Montreal. You're playing 10, 11 minutes a night. The Blues are operating when he's there like a 5-man defensive unit, where at least like when Matt Kessel's playing, he's playing 14 minutes, almost 12 minutes. The one game, I get. You put him in there because he hadn't played yet. You wanted to see what it looked like, and guess what? Against Toronto, it was a -1, but you won the game. There was no reason to go beyond that with Scott Perunovich. You know what this team is. You know what Scott Perunovich's role was. He was the offensive defenseman. He was the 8th defenseman. You're at the point now to where when roster decisions need to be made, which I think the only one that really impacts you is the Nick Leddy one on IR, because Thomas isn't coming off anytime soon. When Nick Leddy returns, Scott Perunovich should be the one that goes through waivers, because if you've tried to generate a trade, it's not there. You do waivers. If he gets claimed, great. If not, you hope that the stock can rise in the AHL.
And if there's any benefit of the last 2 games, I think it does potentially make it less likely that somebody will claim him.
It's true. But you put him in the AHL. Best case scenario for the Blues is you go to the AHL, you tear it up again like you did when Drew Bannister was there, and then if anything, a stock has risen somewhat to where you could flip him for another guy that needs a change of scenery.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone. I'm BK. Blues back in action tomorrow night, a game you'll hear right here on 101 ESPN. Of course, pregame coverage with Alex tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Puck drop with Curbs tomorrow at 6. That is against the Ottawa Senators. Coming up next, we'll give you our football pick'em reveal. It was the final week of this month's pick'em. Who is going to be punished? We'll let you hear that next here on 101 ESPN. All right, it's time for a football pick'em reveal with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you're new to the show, the way this works, very simple. Each and every Friday, we'll pick 3 games against the spread. College football, NFL, only real rule is that it has to be finished by the time that we come on the air on Monday. So Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday games, all available for you. No props, no over-unders, just against the spread. Alex, we came into the week, and it was going to be a tough one for me to get back into things. I had to go 3-0. I needed Alex to go 0-3, and in that scenario, there was a chance that I could potentially avoid punishment. That was basically it. So let's see how we did. Let's start with Tanner's picks from this week. It started out with this 1-point play. He went to the NFL for this one, Alex. A little bit of a change-up from T-Bone.
For my one, and I'm going to an NFC South battle because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I don't know if you guys saw, their whole wide receiver room's injured. And I don't know who Baker Mayfield's throwing the ball to. And I know I'm probably falling for a trap. But the Falcons at only 2.5 points as the favorite on the road. Give me that line. I think you'll see a bounce-back game from the Atlanta Falcons.
Game down to this. Mayfield steps up, launches it to the end zone for the win. It is caught out of bounds, and Atlanta takes over first place in the NFC South, holding on for a 5-point win.
Wow. It's closer than I expected it to be. I did like that pick for you, T-Bone. Baker Mayfield is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now. I don't know how else to put it. He if you can do that with Kate Otten, Raheem Jarrett, who I genuinely have no idea who that is.
The other team didn't either.
And Bucky Irving as your top 3 receivers in the game. Good on you, Baker. But a good win. Good hit for T-Bone in the first pick of the week.
Now, how about that? NFL success for T-Bone.
All right, in the college football side of things, I did not love this pick for you. Let's see how it worked out.
My 2-point play, it's a road team, but I think they're one of the best teams in the country. I'm not just saying that because they beat the Illini. Give me Penn State minus 6.5 at Wisconsin. I don't think Wisconsin's very good.
Inside their 10 now. 3rd and 14. Blocked from his end zone. It's picked off. Jalen Reed. Touchdown. Huge play for the Penn State defense.
Lose their quarterback halfway through, didn't matter. Took care of business. Penn State, a legit top 3 team in the country. Good on you, T-Bone.
I was worried early on, I'm not going to lie, because I thought they would kill Wisconsin, and it took them a while to finally get going.
Last pick of the week. Now, this one I really didn't like.
Oh, relax.
A showdown between 2 rivals. Throw the records out. How'd it go?
My 3-point play, back to college football, and I'm going with one of the longest rivalries going in college football. I'm going with K-State minus 9.5 against Kansas. Guys, Kansas is not a good football team. They are 2-5, and one of those 2 wins is against Lindenwood.
He wants to throw it. Now will take off. With a path and a tumble, and the ball comes out. Kansas State jumps on top of it.
Haven't you learned your lesson from these big spreads?
I won one of them earlier this week. That Penn State game was 6.5.
That's not a 9.5 spread.
You got lucky that this one, not only... You got lucky that K-State won. KU had this game in the bag and then somehow found a way to literally fumble it away. So you didn't cover, but you also got lucky that your team even won that game straight up.
Yeah. 9.5. Stop it, man. Stay under a touchdown.
Dude, relax. You think my spreads were big. Wait till we start playing his.
Yeah, but his actually worked.
Well, kind of. All right, let's start out with the college football slate. T-Bone goes 2-1 on the week, ends up with 3 points. He is safe from potential punishment. Ended up with 13 points this month, which means he was slightly above 500. Did go 6-6 on his picks, though, so an even spread for T-Bone. My 2-point play, we'll start out there. Oregon, big-time favorite. How'd we do? I have Oregon minus 21.5 at home against the Illini. Illinois riding high, reading their own press clippings.
That's a loss.
Oregon now is going to be at home. I believe them to be the best team in the country. I've got Oregon minus the 21.5 points.
Gabriel scanning the field on his toes. Throws late and completes it. Tez Johnson cuts it to the outside. Did he get there? Yes, he did. Touchdown, Oregon.
I will say I was a little nervous at halftime when they were up 35-3, not because, you'd rather be up 35-3 than not up 35-3. They shut things down completely in the second half. I was unbelievably nervous that they were not going to cover the 21.5 point spread. You look back at that game, man, Illinois had every opportunity to cover this thing. Couple of turnovers on downs, couple of interceptions as well that led things in the direction of Oregon. I didn't feel as good about the point spread afterwards as I did going into it. But they do cover, and that's a win for me. 3-point plays in the NFL. Never once did I have concern over this one.
Bryce Young is going to be starting because Andy Dalton was in some kind of a car wreck this week. So Bryce Young is going to be out there on Sunday when I get the opportunity to bet against him, especially when he's going on the road against a really good defense. I think the Broncos defense will outscore the Panthers in this game. Give me the Broncos minus 10 points.
In a hurry. Couple tight ends in this set. Nix shows off the arm strength of a one-handed grab. National Tight Ends Day. Adam Troutman says, it's my day.
I'm actually really upset with myself that I didn't put this in my picks because that just, for a slight second, I'm like, man, this feels like a trap because Bryce Young, you got this offense. And then when Carolina got that fumble on the first drive and scored, I'm like, oh, okay, see, I knew it was a trap. I should have went with my gut.
No, the only surprise on this was that Javonte Williams didn't rush for like 200 yards. Yeah. That was the only thing that surprised me about this game. Instead of running it, they ended up throwing it through the air. Bo Nix, a really good game. Bo Nix has had a pretty solid few weeks now. It's worth noting who he's done it against. He was really solid against New Orleans, who's a terrible defense. He was really good this week against Carolina, a terrible defense. He's a nice game manager. Not sure I want to take that 12th overall, but a really nice game manager for the Broncos. I think they're probably going to end up making the playoffs, Denver, just because they've got a good defense, game-managing quarterback, solid running game. They'll do nothing when they get there, but they're taking that Steelers formula, and they're going to go 9-8, 10-7, something like that.
They'll be the Washington Capitals from last year in the NHL. Be like, how did you get into the playoffs?
All right, a 2-0 start. I needed to go 3-0 this week just to avoid potential disaster. Let's get to my 1-point play.
T-Bone is not selecting this is because he just said during the break, I was going to take this game. Now I'm not because I'm scared. I am going to be taking it, and I'll take whatever comes with it. The Bears are a 2.5-point favorite on the road against the Commanders. The Commanders, I don't think, are going to have Jaden Daniels this weekend. Now, if they do, I'm going to look like a complete and total idiot. Yep. Bears minus 2.5 at the Commanders is a risky play, but one I got to make.
Steps up, fires, heads towards the end zone. It is...
And ladies and gentlemen, the BKO.
That's the worst one yet.
I love that it came on the 1-point play after you won the 3 and the 2-point play.
I know.
They were done. You were like, I've got 5 points. I need this one.
I had it. I had it in the bag, dude. Everything went my way. Caleb did not play great, but I'm going to give Caleb a little credit. He made plays that needed to be made once you got down the stretch of that game.
Yeah, your defense screwed you.
And Tyreek Stevenson, dude. He's taunting the fans as they snap the ball. Have you guys seen the still image of the Bears fans that are pointing toward the field of play saying, the ball snapped, dude, go.
Yeah, I've seen all of the pictures of it, and it's amazing.
Eberflus has now said today at his press conference that was his guy. He was supposed to man up against Noah Brown in the end zone, and he didn't do so, and it cost them the game.
And I'm sorry, but like if we're complaining about that guy, I get it. How does the coaching staff not call a timeout? Like, how do you not see that and be like, okay, time, this dude is not paying attention right now. Can we reset, please?
Well, not only that, but the play before, they gave him a free 12 yards. Yeah. On the broadcast, I think it was Romo who was on that broadcast, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Romo or Brady? I think it was Romo. Romo said, hey, you don't need to go for it all here. Get yourself another free 12 yards. Just run an out route. Just run an out route. He literally drew it on the broadcast. Here's where it's going. And the Bears were like, yeah, please, take the free 12 yards. Had another 3 seconds left, and then we all know what happened.
Like, if you're Eberflus, just like, time, please.
You think it's bad for BK. Imagine if the Bears missed the playoffs by a game. Imagine.
Oh, yeah. I will imagine that. I don't know what the contract situation is like, but if things don't go well for them the rest of the season, Stevenson might be looking for a new home.
Should I have to issue an apology for Bears fans? Is this on me?
Yeah.
Do I need... Is that... Because, like, it didn't work for the Broncos or the Oregon Ducks. They both figured out their stuff. They found a way to overcome the BKO. It's just the Bears? Is it just specific to the Midwest? Any team that I put my stench on in the Midwest?
Yeah. I think what was so sweet about it was the 1-point play because they wanted you to feel confident with the 3 and the 2, and you're like, man, this is the easiest one.
And it was the last game.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, this will be simple. And then...
Okay, so I lost
Hail
that one.
Mary.
Go 2-1 on the week. I finished with 10 points, 4-8 overall on my picks in this month. Let's get to Alex's picks. Alex, we can start with your 1 point play. T-Bone, this is going to be his NFL pick. Sorry, I put this out of order.
What the?
A 1 point play. How'd Alex do?
My 1 point play, but I'm just going to go with the better team, and it's Buffalo -3. I know it's in Seattle. I know Seattle bit me in the rear end last week. I just think Buffalo is a better team now offensively, defensively.
Again, give this Bills offense a lot of credit going on the road and playing this way.
Cook again, right up the middle, and up and in. Touchdown, Buffalo.
Cool. You can end it there because
on the
BK
positive
lost.
side of things, that's all that had to happen for me to not be able to come back anyway. So it wasn't just that the Bears blew it. It's also that Alex hit on his 1 point play. All right, let's hear his 2 point play also in the NFL.
Yep. Okay. Well, number 2 point play for me. I'm taking the Packers -4 over the Jaguars. Don't like the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think they're any good. I understand they found ways to put up points and pick up wins recently. I don't care. Packers are the better team.
McManus for the second straight week. A Green Bay Packers game-winning field goal.
The moment Jordan Love left, I knew that one was happening.
I was about to say,
the moment
that's
he went
not
out,
on
I'm
you.
like, cool, we're done.
Yeah.
Because they were the better team prior to Jordan Love going down.
I agree. Their defense also has some questions at this point. I think it's fair to say. It's probably because Robert Saleh is advising them. All right, your 3
That's not
point
the
play.
juju I need on my team right now.
Again, the NFL side of things for Alex because that's what he does.
This one hurt. All right, 3 point play for me. I think this one actually burned me in the first week of our pick'ems. Whatever happened in week 1 between the Colts and Texans is not going to happen again. Houston -4.5.
The same against the Texans. Richardson buying time for his receivers to get down there. He's in trouble, and Richardson trying to stay alive. Laterals to Braden Smith, scooped up by Autry. Ball is still loose. Will Anderson has it. He is down, and the game is over.
I was up by 2 touchdowns. And then Joe Mixon had the ball going for that third one to lead, and he fumbled it. And that's what. And then they also had the chance to score, and I get why they didn't because they needed to run the clock down and just win the game. I was at the grocery store when this happened, and I was dropping some F-bombs.
So, one, Stephon Diggs now been ruled out for the year. He has a torn ACL. 2, I'm out on the Texans. Not just because of that injury. I'm just done with them. I don't know what it is. They're 6-2, so it's not as if the results aren't there. They are. This offense is not right.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it. It might be as simple as, hey, Nico Collins is one of the best receivers in the NFL, and we didn't give him the proper credit that should be deserved for him. And that's why the offense doesn't look the same right now. But it's been off all year. Ever since the beginning of the season, and I just assumed it would eventually get back on track. It hasn't yet. It's weird. Stroud, I still think is a top 5 to 7 quarterback in the NFL, probably top 5 for me. There's just something off on this offense. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is. I'm out on them. I don't think they're a top 3 team in the AFC at this point.
Yeah, I am too. I think Nico Collins coming back at least makes it a little bit more attractable for Houston. The problem for their team is their defense, though. Like, their defense has not been anything that I can sit there and be like, that can win you a Super Bowl. Because, sure, your offense looks great, but you're going to be going up against Mahomes, the Ravens, Josh Allen and the Bills. Your defense, if it's going to play like this, you're not going to have any chance against those teams.
All right, so the final standings after this month, T-Bone has 13 points, Alex has 12, I have 10. They both go 6-6 overall in their picks, but based on the points T-Bone wins this month, that doesn't matter. What we really care about is who loses, and of course, that is me. I am your lucky loser once again. Who could have seen it possibly coming? That means that I will be punished with a carton of eggs, dozen eggs, half of which are hard-boiled, half of which are not. They will be smashed over my head. We will do this at Centene Community Ice Center, I do believe, as long as we can get the clearance on doing so. So make sure the bosses are cool with it. We'll put a tarp down and everything, make sure it's clean. We're hoping that we'll be able to get some Blues players to come through, crack the eggs on our head. We'll see if they're willing to do that. Potentially Joey Vitale coming out, JR, some of our guys that'll help us out with that just to make it all very fun for you to see.
I want you to look at me right now in my eyes. When you ripped that duct tape off of me,
I knew this was coming.
That was the moment internally that I said, I'm going to inflict pain upon you.
I know, man. I know.
I'm going to make sure that I smash those eggs hard enough to put a shell into your skull.
I know.
I want you to understand that.
I know.
Okay.
All right, from the 314, BK is out on the Texans. I just greenlighted my kids going through college fund on them winning the Super Bowl.
There we go.
Coming up next, does Tommy Edman's success this postseason change your opinion on these kinds of players for playoff contenders? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends at Ted Drew's off of Chippewa, where you need to get out there. Of course, you've heard about that famous frozen custard, but you just need to get out there for this type of year where you got that nice fall weather. You could sit back in the parking lot, enjoy your time, and get that famous, delicious frozen custard. It's consistent. It's a tradition that so many people have been doing since 1929. 95 years and 4 generations of families have been enjoying that St. Louis famous frozen custard, and they've got some specialty items that you can go get. You can get the Great Pumpkin for the fall season. You get out there, it's a slice of pumpkin pie with Ted's delicious vanilla custard, and it's topped with whipped cream. You can also buy it in the quart. You could take it home with you and freeze it so you have it at home all the time whenever you want Ted Drew's. Also, walk across the gift shop. Or walk across the street to the gift shop where you could buy Ted Drew's apparel. You could buy Ted Drew's souvenirs, Ted Drew's gift cards. All of those are there for you at the Ted Drew's gift shop. It's the famous destination off of Chippewa. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Siliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tomorrow night as they visit the Ottawa Senators. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 6 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Carper. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Siliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
field line. Towards the corner it goes. It is gone! Tommy Edman strikes again.
Tommy Edman is having one hell of a postseason for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's batting .365. He has a slugging percentage of .577. And Alex, he has multiple hits in a game 7 separate times. 7 instances with a multi-hit game. He is just the 3rd Dodger to do that in a single postseason in the history of their franchise. And this is one of the most storied franchises in all of Major League Baseball. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. That audio courtesy of Fox. Alex, does Tommy Edman's success this postseason make you feel any differently about some of the interchangeable pieces that the Cardinals have on their roster? I'm thinking of guys like Thomas Ajacey and Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar. These guys that, yeah, maybe they're not known as 35 home run hitters or players that are going to be the superstar on a contending team. But to me, and it's the reason why I've always liked these types of players, you need these guys in order to have success.
Happy World
One day of
Series.
TMA, and here we go.
I don't need those guys to get any of that. I'm fine without those guys.
Here for the ball player.
I tell you what, though, if you have those guys, you can definitely have a farty because of it.
That's right. Okay. Take 2. You need players like this in order to have success in the postseason. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, the second comment that you made, I do agree with. Not the first one, but I mean, I said this last week when Tommy Edman did it in the NLCS against the Mets. If anything, it gives me confidence that the Cardinals, 1, have the ability to identify these guys, and 2, I think they have a lot of these players that can have the success on the field, like Mason Wynn, like Alec Burleson, like Brendan Donovan. The problem is we just haven't been able to see it because the Cardinals haven't been in the postseason over these last couple of years.
Donovan's another good example.
I have no doubt that Brendan Donovan could have had a moment like that in a playoff series for the Cardinals.
With a Cardinals jersey on?
Yeah, with the Cardinals jersey on. Now, the problem is I've seen a lot of the Goldschmidts and the Arenados and the Tyler O'Neills, the Harrison Baders. Like, I've seen those guys, and they've moved on to other places. I haven't seen some of these younger players that at least showed me in the regular season that they can come up with a big hit with success in a big game. It's just right now I need to find out if they can actually do it when they get there. The regular season, it's pretty obvious that Wynn, Donovan, Burleson, those guys can do it for you.
There's a new metric in the NFL that has been coined, and I'm not kidding. This is honest to God the truth.
The successometer?
So it's success rate plus explosiveness rate in the NFL, and so they just call it the sex rate for the NFL.
Is it the sex rate?
Man. It's probably my fault that I've been reading too much about that, looking at the nerdy spreadsheets and finding
I always thought that sex appeal was about the way you looked. No. I didn't know it was about athleticism, and if that's the case all the way at the bottom line.
You know, our sex appeal on this show, definitely the bottom of the barrel.
Oh, yeah. There's zero sex appeal.
That being said, the reason why I find guys like Tommy Edman to be important for postseason success.
I'm getting so many messages.
Hey, I just got a couple of texts myself.
My buddy just sent me like 4 different gifts.
The reason why these guys are important for the postseason.
Focus on the show over there.
Lack of strikeout rate. I think contact rate is super important once you get to the playoffs.
You can't have success without contact.
That's right. You also have the ability to have success against one-handedness in particular.
Come on, dude.
You're trying to say it over there.
This is honestly an accident. You can't throw a left-handed pitcher against Tommy Edman. He's going to smack that thing right out of the yard with Alex and T-Bone and BK. The rewind is next. I'm sorry. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
You can always check us out on YouTube after the show as well. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. To finish up the show today, we'll go back to the college football slate because honestly, I'm not sure how much of a topic Missouri is going to be moving forward, unfortunately. They lose on Saturday. They're 6-2 on the season. They are still somehow in the top 25. I'm not totally sure I understand that one. Missouri came in at 25th in the AP poll. Illinois, for what it's worth, is at 24th in the AP poll. Mizzou is at 23rd in the coaches poll, one spot ahead of the Illini, also 24th in the coaches poll. Would you guys have Mizzou at this point in the top 25?
No, I wouldn't. I don't know who I would have at 25, but it's not. Yeah, probably. It's not Mizzou. Yeah,
I know Mizzou beat them head-to-head. I don't care.
Yeah. Mizzou haven't picked up any victory against the top 25 with the exception of Boston College, and I think we all can agree on Boston College, so no, I wouldn't.
And we can all see Drew Pine's not a good quarterback.
Yeah.
So I'm frankly shocked they're still in the top 25. And to be fair, I'm shocked Illinois was still in the top 25. I thought both should have fallen out of the top 25 after this week, but yeah, they're not a top 25 team. BK's right, they won't be relevant either here.
Be a fun bowl game soon.
Maybe.
I could see that. I don't know if the problem is you have to get an agreement from both sides to be willing to go play against one another. And I think last year, 2 years ago, maybe it was, Mizzou and Kansas couldn't come to an agreement on that. So I don't know if that'll be the case or not, if they would want to play one another, because they do have that head-to-head non-con coming up here pretty soon. So it would take a little bit away from that. But yeah, Mizzou, I don't think they're going to be in the top 25 for much longer. My guess, Brady Cook out for at least a couple of weeks. We'll see what happens after that. And man, at this point, an 8-win season would be
a miracle.
Given the standards, a success. But this season has been a massive disappointment. There's something that I do want to talk about with you guys tomorrow on the show. The 12-team playoff, for a million different reasons, I believe has been a success. I think it's going to lead to more interest nationwide from more fan bases. One byproduct of the expanded postseason, though, is now if your team, like Mizzou, is effectively eliminated, there's even less reason to watch the rest of the way. Like, there used to be real value on 10-win seasons where you can get to a New Year's Six Bowl. Last year for Mizzou, for example, that was a successful year. Now that's... who cares?
Oh, yeah. That's where I'm at.
The New Year's Six Bowls are tied into the college football playoff. So the best thing you could do is like
Pop-Tart Bowl?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, no, it's this has done that in the sense of I could care less about my local team because once you're out of it, you're done. You're off my radar because now I'm watching the 12-team football playoff. I'm watching the NFL. I'm watching hockey. You're done as soon as you fall out of the 12-team playoff conversation.
It's like a baseball team falling out of the postseason race.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. You can win 84 games. Who cares? If you're done, you're done.
Yeah.
See, and that's what's funny is I've been the one that has hated the expansion of the college football playoff. I felt that way about the New Year's Six Bowls already prior to this, just because they didn't matter. Like that, as much as everybody wanted to look back on the Cotton Bowl Missouri won last year. Yeah, they went up against Ohio State's third-string quarterback. All their best players decided to opt out of that bowl game. Who really cared about?
As a fan of the team, I can tell you, I still cared about that.
It was the cherry
I cared
on
about
top.
I cared about the regular season finish as well. Getting to 10 wins mattered. Getting to double-digit wins still had meaning.
Sure, that I agree with.
I don't think it does anymore, though.
I think that's fair.
I think that has changed with the expansion of the playoff. I don't know if that's right, wrong, and different, but I think it has changed to a degree. And it doesn't matter because Missouri ain't getting to 10 wins anyways.
Hey.
For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fastlane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.